dog, status Bill Hubble. I bought Lennox Mall for my brothers. Sold yard bag, told the cutter. I got it out the field, fuck Russell. Going ask Lori about the paddock, and going ask Jordan, that's dead. For leak water, trying to drown a bitch. It's a habit, tricking on a bitch. Shit, I'm thinking I'm cribbing a pimp. Shit, I'm cooking up dope like a dump. Shit, like her first gon' sit nigga trim. Shit, I'm floating, I'm out in the blimp. Shit, it look like I'm swimming in glass. Shit, I turn on my bitch cause she bad. Shit, I'm making my ex nigga mad. Shit, they go for them coming mad. Real nigga learn them, wearing a bag. Piping a bitch and they nail like I can. Turn up the shooters with switches go bad. They with some scammers, but not with some pain. Slapping no rapping, my dog, he fall off. No capping, no bound.
What it do, 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 what it do. I go by the name of BLEE, represent that self-paid hustle TV, where the hustle has to be in you, not on you. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe, man.
Mercedes, riding foreign, fucking with them ladies.
Well, ladies,
getting so much money, this shit crazy. In 9-4, I had that black 500, and when you open that bitch up, there's wood grain on the dough. Then I copped that Maybach, the first one in my city. Is get rich or die trying, man. I'm feeling like 50.
Got so many business,
I'm not no witness. Working with my blessing, I'm just spending what he sent me. I always fill them up, but they be always on empty. Cause I be always on the way to make a bitch miss me. I break her, then I shake her until she give me paper. I hit her in my Sprinter. Look, we done woke up the neighbor. Magnum to make it safer. Baby want me to rape her, but never at my house. My other spot is where I take her. Mercedes, riding foreign, fucking with them ladies. Well, cause we down South Kings. Ladies, getting so much money, this shit crazy. You know we killing the scene. That Chrysler 300 I had, that shit was classic. Alligator all in the back, shit was Jurassic. Me and my nigga Cook Overt was on automatic. Like televisions back in the 60s, niggas was static. You like the base model? I like AMG. I got screens everywhere, shit look like a AMC. I called him Marco, and then he cut the check. My chick like money too. She say it make her wet. My chick like money too, but I ain't got a chick. Shit ain't on the wheel and the lack and the flow, it gotta see. Hey, when it's paper on the line, F the speed limit. I hit your chick for 3 hours and 33 minutes. Mercedes, riding foreign, fucking with them ladies.
well.
Cause we down South Kings. Ladies, much money, this shit crazy. This shit crazy. You know we killing the scene.
What it do, 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 man. Yeah, man. So, allegedly, they done caught old Massey. I know I'm a little late, but yeah, I got other shit I had to take care of. Yeah, man, they done caught old Massey, man. I knew that nigga was gonna get caught. He couldn't stay away from social media, man. And they put a 50 ball on his top, man. Once you get to putting that money on them people top, man, listen. 50,000 on his, 50,000 on the other man top, man. What's crazy is to me is the nigga never left. A nigga never left the hood. That boy was bold, and it also shows you. See, I know it only lasted a month, but I'm saying when you can be in the hood and nobody tell on you, man, that tell you something about something. So first, we're gonna get into some of the people that had some things to do with it at first that they trying to say. I think it's also weird that like these black guys break out and y'all go to take their people. I mean, I don't want to sound racist or nothing, but I think it's weird that
oversight into.
I think it's weird that yeah, like I see people break out of prison all the time. Y'all don't be going to get their family members and doing all this old shit. I guess because it was 10 black guys, y'all ready to do, that's crazy, now. We're going to get into this, man. And then we're going to get into what the dudes say. That I got some other shit, man. I'm up all night, man.
This woman is one of the latest people to be arrested for allegedly helping inmates who escaped the New Orleans jail. Her boyfriend is still on the run, and he is a convicted murderer. The other man still on the run right now is potentially still posting about it on social media. This is a picture of who appears to be Antoine Massey, the same man who you might remember from this viral video last week.
They said that I broke out. I didn't break out. I was let out. My name is Antoine Massey.
We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We are coming up on 1 month since 10 New Orleans inmates escaped the local jail. Right now, these two inmates are still on the run, Derek Groves and Antoine Massey. Groves was awaiting sentencing after being convicted of shooting and killing 2 people on Mardi Gras in 2018. Massey is facing charges of rape, kidnapping, domestic violence, and theft. We'll talk about the latest in the search for those two in just a moment, but let's talk about the more than 12 people who have been arrested for allegedly helping these inmates before and after they escaped. This is a picture of Dariana Burton. She is 28 years old. This is the picture put out by the Louisiana Attorney General announcing her arrest. She's not only the girlfriend of Groves, the convicted killer, she is a former correctional employee. She's accused of giving at least one inmate a ride after the escape back on May 16th when the inmates ripped.
So they said that she didn't gave them a ride. She was waiting around. See, they don't be understanding that them inmates be winning them female guards. That's what we call it in there. When you win one of them female guards, she gonna go. Hey, man, listen, man. You gotta be crazy to let your woman, if you married to a woman who work in prison. It's crazy. Cause nigga, you know what your woman looking at, nigga? You know what your woman looking at every day. Like, you could only fathom.
Ripped open a faulty door, broke through a hole in the jail wall, leaving a bit of trash talk for the sheriff, saying it was too easy, and then running out the back of the jail to freedom. Police say not only did Burton just show up the night of the jailbreak, they say she had a video call with her boyfriend 2 days before the jailbreak. Groves apparently talked to her on a jail-issued iPad. Police say Burton held a secondary device up to hers to allow another man to talk to Groves so he could communicate an escape plan.
Crazy
To show
work.
how coordinated this jailbreak was, people on
Select
the
a
outside
slug.
allegedly helped several of the inmates
Yeah, I'm
escape.
about to
Police
put
say
the
on the
link
night of
in
the
the
jailbreak,
to
sisters
put
of
the link
another
in the
inmate, Lenton Van Buren, received a FaceTime call from their brother on the night of his escape, and he was in the car with Dariana Burton. Now, Van Buren was captured more than an hour away from New Orleans in Baton Rouge, 10 days after the jailbreak on May 26th. Van Buren was in jail on a charge of second-degree murder. According to WVUE-TV, at least 5 people have been arrested for allegedly helping him in connection to the jailbreak. Now, here's another picture from the Louisiana State Police. This is of Van Buren being taken to another facility by helicopter. More than a dozen people have been charged so far in helping the 10 inmates escape. That includes not just family members and girlfriends, but people who were inside this jail. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I want to bring you a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children under the age of 21 are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes, or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to these outcomes? Our partners at Morgan & Morgan, they are stepping in. Sterling Williams was a maintenance worker at the jail, and he allegedly turned the water off, allowing the inmates to move that jail toilet without being detected. Williams has said that the escaped inmate, Antoine Massey, threatened to shank him if he didn't turn the water off. Speaking of Massey, in a bold move, he may still be posting on social media as he's on the run. Take a look at this post from an Instagram account, and according to NOLA.com, police are investigating this post as the second potential post that he's created since his escape. Now, this post is under the username _007 Chucky with 2 Ys. It's a picture of someone who appears to be Massey. You can see the face tattoos with the caption that says, "My name is Antoine Massey, I'm innocent." Now, if this was in fact done by Massey, this would be the second alleged post that he's made since he escaped the jail in New Orleans.
They said that I broke out. I didn't break out. I was let out. My name is Antoine Massey.
This is the more than 9-minute video posted to a social media account that appears to be of Antoine Massey. The video was first posted on Instagram, and it's since gone viral. Massey claims his innocence in the video, and he also calls out.
Hold on, this is what I'm gonna say. Okay, I get if you was let out. Okay, but this is where I'm coming to. Why would they let you out? What's the reason that they would want to let you out? Like, come on. Now, oh, they wanted to let you out because of the scandal or whatever it is that's going on in Louisiana jails or whatever it is. Nah, man, come on, man. These niggas be wanting to get out of jail so bad, they acting like R. Kelly over there talking about they ate an overdose him. Nigga, I know. Once you did get to looking at them walls for a few years, man, niggas be wanting to tap the hell out.
Some big names to help him.
At the end of the day, I am a good person. So I'm asking for help from the world, from Lee Mills, Lil Wayne, Young Boy, Donald Trump. I'm asking for these people. I couldn't even get a lawyer. I couldn't even afford a lawyer to prove my innocence while I was in Orleans Parish jail. They said that I broke out. I didn't break out. I was let out. My name is Antoine Massey.
This is the immediate response that law enforcement.
Now, let me remind you that they put a 50 ball on both of their tops. The federal government put a 50 ball on both of their tops. So a lot of people are saying that he got caught so the people can get the money so he can pay for a lawyer. That's what they saying. But man, the nigga stayed out and parlayed for his birthday and everything, y'all. The nigga got out of jail for his birthday. The nigga went swimming. The nigga did a lot of shit that he hadn't did in years, he said.
Had to that Instagram post. This is a picture from the associate.
He got caught in an Airbnb, y'all. The lady, the Airbnb owner, called in on him. This nigga was getting some serious help. But an Airbnb in the same place where you, like, come on, man. Ow. That niggas can't leave the hood, but then they kind of protected that nigga for a month, though. everywhere they kept hitting, somebody kept telling them to move around because they about to hit.
Associated Press of a home in New Orleans that police raided quickly after that video went viral. And police say that Massey wasn't inside the home, but they did find some of the clothes he was wearing in that video. So they must have just missed him. This apparently, though, wasn't the first time that Massey has broken out of jail. WWL TV found that he has an escape record that goes back nearly 20 years, starting in 2007 when he escaped from a juvenile facility. The TV station also says that Massey broke out of a detention center in Texas in 2019, and then in 2023, he cut off an ankle monitor. In response to his social media activity, the Orleans Parish Sheriff put out a statement saying that they are aware of that video and they are urging Massey to come forward. Massey's
the reason why he threw that he escaped in sub 19 and then he cut off an ankle monitor, because when you cut off an ankle monitor too, that's when you go to jail, it's like they gonna put escape on there too. That's why he put that on there. When you cut off an ankle monitor, you get an escape charge.
Sister has been arrested and charged with helping Antoine Massey after he escaped. Most of the inmates who are now back in custody did not make it outside Louisiana, except for 2 who were captured in a rural town north of Houston in Texas, 377 miles from New Orleans. Those 2 inmates were Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald. They led police in Huntsville, Texas on a high-speed chase. Eventually, the officers there were able to corner them and took them into custody.
You know what's crazy?
Of that
I'm gonna tell y'all something. You know what's crazy? What's crazy about this whole situation is these guys got caught in Huntsville, Texas. For all the people who've been to prison in Texas, they know that when Huntsville is the transfer unit, everybody who going to the prison is called the Wilds. That's the first place that you go before they ship you to all these different units to see where you're going to go. Some people might even do their time there. You know what I'm saying? Very few. But nigga, the Wild, and these niggas get caught in that town. That's crazy, y'all. That's crazy.
Both of them. Got hands so everybody can hold them. Jumbo, good hands?
Shut up. Yeah. Hey.
Unlock the door with your right hand. Crawl, no, Jumbo, back up. Crawl to him. In the car. All the way out. Crawl. Back to quick. Slow everybody down.
And here are 2 pictures that the Huntsville Police Department put out of those 2 escapees who led them on the chase. And Jermaine Donald. Donald is the man you see in the white shirt. He was in jail on a charge of second-degree murder. Tate's original charge was obstruction of justice. They now both will be facing additional charges, not just for the escape in New Orleans, but for leading police on that chase in Texas. Law enforcement is offering $50,000 as a reward for tips leading to the capture of those final 2 inmates who at the time of this recording are still on the run. Joining us now to talk about the search is retired NYPD detective and co-host of the Gold Shields podcast, Tom Smith. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. We're entering our 4th week since the escape of these 10 inmates. What do you make of 15 people being arrested, all accused of helping these 10 inmates get out of jail?
Yeah, I know. And you know what? We were waiting for that. We were waiting to see who else was going to be involved in this, because this isn't an everyday occurrence. And when you're in a penitentiary like that or a system like that, you need some inside help with scheduling, with access, with all things like that. So that was pretty much a matter of time before all that came down. And I'm not surprised one bit with the sophistication that was used and the timing that was used. It was pretty obvious from the beginning that there was some inside help with this. And, you know, it just took a little time to gather them all up.
Huh.
I think of this sheriff, and she, you know, here you are, you have this very embarrassing situation where the inmates are able to get out. Yeah. And then you have people like the girlfriend of Derek Rose, she used to work at a correctional facility. You have the maintenance man who says that he was threatened to turn off the water. So you have people who are inside.
The regular people think? The regular people think you look stupid, basically. I'm going to call them regular people. I ain't going to call them, they ain't going to say no racist or nothing. The regular people think you look stupid. You know what I'm talking about? They think you look stupid. So what y'all trying to do is make everybody that's family to them and all that shit look stupid. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that about this situation, bro. Y'all the ones. This is on y'all. Y'all should ask us to be in the sling. Y'all should be fired. Like, and then you know what's crazy is it's a lot of like. I hate to say this. It's crazy though. Look at their police department, bro. It's a lot of black people. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a lot of black people in that mug. A lot of black people. A lot of black people that's top tier in their police force.
Organization accused of helping these inmates escape. What are some of the challenges you see in this particular sheriff's office where it seems like it was a secret to her, but not to multiple people who are close to these inmates in the jail?
Yeah, you need a better vetting system of who you're hiring, and you need better oversight into the jail and who is dealing with who's hanging out with who, whether that's a surveillance system or people on the inside telling you what's going on. But it was pretty obvious that there needs to be more of an oversight into the relationships that are going on in, you know, these facilities and corrections officers or people who just work at the facility. You know, if you have a security system set up, that's going to be pretty obvious once you start going over it of who is always with who and who's hanging out with who. And I'm sure somewhat of that took place when it came to nailing down who was involved in this. And of course, other people talking, which is no secret in the jail system of who's going to give up who.
And Derek Groves, he was convicted of a double homicide on Mardi Gras in 2018. He was awaiting sentencing, which is why he was at the jail. His girlfriend is arrested. He apparently had a FaceTime call with her from jail.
Yeah,
and he had a prison issue, jail issue iPad that he had access to. How common is it for inmates? I mean, he's waiting for sentencing, but he's already been convicted of as serious a crime as you can have, and he has access to electronics inside the jail.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't get it. That is just mind-blowing that you're giving inmates the ability to plan something like this. You're having them have conversations or giving them a roadmap with other people on the outside, and you're giving it to them. It's not even that they're hiding it. You know, these technology that's going on is handed to them. And, wake up. There's no good intentions here. They're not saying goodnight to their loved ones. This is all about what they can do and how they can manipulate the system.
Let's be real though. Would you rather keep busting them for thousands of cell phones, or just give it to them? Stupid. Just give it to them. That's the way I see it. Like, nigga, they gonna get the cell phones regardless because, nigga, you see how corrupt shit is. Y'all don't pay enough. All them inmates gonna do is whatever them guards get paid every 2 weeks, nigga, give it to them times 2. They gonna bring their cell phone right up in there. They gonna bring them drugs right up in there. Them cigarettes right up in there. Tell you, bro. Like, I done seen it. Yeah.
System and get out, which they did, and that has to stop. Not only there, but on any level in any facility.
It's
right,
y'all.
Because as much as I know,
the
sheriff's talk about the millions of dollars needed to bring this local jail up to the level that it should be at. I mean, if you have inmates that are just openly communicating about escape plans with their loved ones on the outside, I mean, there's only so much you can do in that case. In your experience, and this isn't the first time that we've seen, and particularly talking about Derek Groves' girlfriend, this isn't the first time that we've seen someone who's romantically involved with someone who's convicted of a pretty serious crime. How is it that someone gets romantically involved with someone who is going to be in jail, prison for the rest of their lives, and then is still able to be manipulated from the outside? Why is that something that we seem to see more than once?
Yeah, you see it a lot. I mean, you see these relationships blossom even while they're in jail, of this celebrity status that some of these individuals have. I mean, Charles Manson had it, and look at his track record. It's an ongoing thing, and it's a phenomena that you're not going to be able to figure out. Me and you sure are not going to figure it out on this show, but it's just this thing. But you know what? Here's the good part of it. When it comes to something like this, they're easily tracked down. You know, so when you have an individual that might have, you know, either has a plan to escape or did escape in this situation, it's easy to follow the breadcrumbs
Yeah,
and see who is involved and who their
yeah,
go-tos
Mr.
are,
J.
and maybe get a greater idea of the plan and the escape plan.
Now let's talk about the search for there. At the time of this
We're gonna
reporting, there's
stop
two
this.
left. Derek Groves, he's accused or convicted, excuse me, of
We're gonna stop this, and then we're gonna go to what they said now. Because this was 9 days ago. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna go to what they said now. Let me cue this up real fast. This nigga on lives. He doing all types of shit, thinking he ain't gonna get caught. Boy, that whole ass cell phone gonna be the ending of your shit, nigga. Yeah, like nigga, they ain't playing.
a citizen, and that alone speaks volumes to her legitimacy of relationships that matter. So when the community believes and trusts their police departments and their law enforcement agencies, they work cooperatively. And so she will speak directly to that situation. I want to thank all of our partners who are present, because truly they were all out there as a team. So from ATF to FBI to our own police department, our violent offender warrant squad, our own violent crimes team that is a specialty team that we call VCATE, of course, our partners in the state police, obviously our partners with the sheriff and the Orleans Sheriff's Office, and also our U.S. Marshal is going to speak to you in a minute. I know HSI is present, and also Jefferson Parish has always been a great partner to us. So many, many thanks to you. We still have one more. We have Groves. And so Groves knows that we are going to capture you. You will be taken into custody, but you still have the option to peacefully turn yourself in. And we will make an appeal to you to do so. All of these captures have been able to be done peacefully, and that is also the end of the game. We don't want anyone hurt, not our own officers, and certainly not Mr. Groves. So the opportunity is there at any time to turn yourself in. And as I had spoken to the fact a couple of weeks ago, we do have the public defender is ready to meet you and to be with you from the very moment you choose
So
to
to
turn
think the
yourself
media
in.
playing
And
shit.
Darlene,
Man, they be
who's the face
nah,
of
they
Crime
be
Stoppers, will also
trying
have
to clean up
the
shit,
opportunity to
man.
make her
Like
appeal and to
to
give the
not
Crime
be
Stoppers favor.
fired.
So with that,
Little do they know they gonna get fired. You can try to fire up all the people on the outside of that jail you want to. They are still gonna fire you eventually, lady. Like you don't get it. You think because you cleaned it up real bad, like that ain't like nah. They watch this. Watch. They gonna sweep that whole jail and hire nothing but new people. Watch what I tell you.
I am
Yeah,
going to go
what they gonna do is they gonna send a lot of people from other towns to come there and work. So it ain't no way you gonna get a chance to know these people. Watch what I tell you. They gonna send a lot of get what I'm saying. They gonna sweep that whole jail, put new people there. But most of them people that's gonna be there are gonna be people from the outside of the little place where they from, bro. I promise you. Watch. They're gonna pay them people extra money. Nigga, watch what I tell you. It's crazy.
Ahead and turn this over to our U.S. Marshal for our area. This is going to be Chief Walter Ivy. And then after Chief Ivy, I know that Director Harper will call people to the podium. And then probably after him will be from our Colonel Robert Hodges.
This shit boring.
Chief Ivy, please come to the podium and share with you about the event of today.
This shit boring.
Good afternoon. I'm Walter Martin. I'm the Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal here in New Orleans, the Eastern District of Louisiana. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
I want to start by thanking the men and women who have been working tirelessly to not only arrest Mr. Massey, but the previous fugitives, as well as those that have helped in.
This shit boring. We're gonna go get into some Diddy shit because, you know, that nigga Diddy faked it, boy. That nigga Diddy faith is in the jury's hands right now. I'm talking about right now, as we speak. They're sleeping on what his faith is gonna be, y'all. But before we get into this, we're gonna get into some other Diddy shit, like what Miss Britannia was talking about the other day, because he got a lot of lawsuits coming up, man. Like a lot, like to deal with right now, man. For real, like I didn't even know this, and Miss Britannia told me this, and I told her I didn't even see this. This is crazy, y'all.
Diddy is listening to.
Y'all listen to this right here. Listen to this right here, y'all. She told us about this shit yesterday.
The closing arguments in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial in federal court in New York, his son, Justin, has been hit with a lawsuit by a woman who claims that he lured her to Los Angeles to be raped by multiple men, including his dad, Sean Diddy Combs. Now, this isn't the first time that Justin has been named in a lawsuit with his famous father. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris.
Oh, yeah. Listen.
How about the timing?
I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you.
Involving the son of Sean Diddy Combs. It was just in the hours after the government on Thursday finished their closing arguments in the case against the disgraced music mogul that we learned about this new lawsuit against Sean Combs' son, Justin. Justin is one of Diddy's 7 kids. Here he is with his dad's arm around his shoulder. Justin has been in court supporting his dad, just as his siblings have been over the past 7 weeks of testimony. Now, listen, whatever your feelings are on Sean Combs and whether you think he's guilty of the charges that could put him in federal prison for the rest of his life, you just have to think how difficult it must be to hear about all the sexual exploits of their father. But if you believe the allegations I'm about to tell you in this new lawsuit brought against Justin Combs, Justin apparently was very aware of his dad's lifestyle. The new lawsuit that just dropped was filed by a woman from Louisiana who says in 2017, Justin Combs coaxed her to come to LA because she says that Diddy's son promised her a job in the entertainment industry. She claims the two had met on Snapchat, and Justin allegedly asked for explicit pictures, and she sent them. The woman who's not named in this suit says when she got to LA, she was raped by several men, including a certain music mogul now at the center of this high-profile, historic trial in federal court in Lower Manhattan. Yes, Sean Diddy Combs. The alleged victim claims that Justin invited her out west for a weekend to talk about her career. But when she got there, she says she was kept in a house in Beverly Hills. And according to the lawsuit, things seemed fine at first, but when she allegedly asked Justin Combs if they were going to leave the house, he said no. She claims that Justin Combs offered her alcohol, pills, and weed, and she thinks that the weed was laced. Now, you can see in those allegations some of the comparisons in this lawsuit to the so-called freak-offs that we have been hearing about for weeks at the center of the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial. The woman says after she took the drugs, 3 men entered the house and all of them were wearing masks. Now, it's unclear what kind of masks the men were wearing, but when I read that part, I thought about the testimony of Sheree Hayes in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, the escort known as the Punisher. He testified that during a freak-off, Sean Combs allegedly wore a face covering that he likened to a Muslim hijab. In the lawsuit against Justin Combs, the alleged victim says that she knew that one of the men was Diddy just because of his mannerisms, but how about this? She also knew it was Diddy because she says that Justin, as his dad, entered the home to allegedly rape a woman that he brought to LA, called Diddy, quote, Pops. Now, we see on Justin's social media that Pops is the phrase that he often uses for his dad. In this lawsuit, the alleged victim claims that she was led to a bedroom where she was allegedly told, quote, you better let this happen or else. Then she says that each man took a turn raping her, calling it a, quote, brutal gang rape. After that, she was taken to an airport on Monday and flown home. Not only is Diddy facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison if convicted of all the charges in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial, there have been nearly 80 lawsuits filed against him in civil court. Many are still active. Several of the lawsuits accuse Diddy of sexual abuse and are filed by people who are not giving their names, just like in this lawsuit that we're talking about. This also isn't the first lawsuit that Justin Combs has recently faced. Justin was named in a suit brought by music producer Rodney Jones, who goes by Little Rod. Rod claims that Diddy coerced him into sexual acts. And you can see the suit also names Justin Combs and accused Justin of covering up a shooting in 2022 at Little Rod's studio in LA with his dad. In May, a judge did dismiss Justin from Little Rod's lawsuit, so he is no longer facing those allegations. As for the lawsuit filed in the hours before his dad's attorneys were to make closing arguments, E! News reports that Diddy's attorneys have denied the allegations, but it's unclear what Justin's response is at the time of this recording. Joining us now is criminal defense attorney Will Corman. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us. What stands out to you in this lawsuit
It's
that
crazy right here.
Sean Combs is named, but also his son Justin?
Well, it's interesting. I think that the connection to Sean Combs is pretty tenuous. You know, we've gone through this all. It almost seems the one connection to Sean Combs they actually put on him is the allegation that Justin called one of the masked men Pops during the course of the assault or just before the assault. That's it. The other connection, obviously, is that Sean Combs is Justin Combs' dad. So I think it's a bit of a stretch. You know, again, we're just receiving these documents now. We're just going through this lawsuit now. Perhaps there's more out there, but it really doesn't seem that way.
And of course, people who are victims of sexual violence, you want them to get their justice. We have seen dozens of lawsuits filed against Justin's dad in the wake of when he was indicted for the trial that he's on right now. How do you go through these lawsuits and understand who's telling the truth and who actually has a case that could be heard in court? Someone like Cassie Ventura, when you see that video from 2016, or you do look at some of these Jane Doe lawsuits guilty of a lot of wonder how many of them
but not no racketeering.
Look, as a criminal defense attorney, it's my job to be cynical, and it's my job to, you know, review everything with a pretty jaundiced eye. So the question really becomes are there corroborating facts and circumstances from Jump Street that make sense? So, for example, if this lawsuit is alleging that something happened in LA during a specific period of time, do we know that Sean Combs was there? Do we actually know that he was present in LA? These things aren't difficult to find out, but it's those baby steps to trying to build the foundation of a lawsuit to see what's realistic that really matter in a case like this. And as you so correctly said, we want victims of domestic violence, of sexual violence, and so on and so forth to actually be compensated accordingly. Unfortunately, when we have circumstances where we have somebody famous who's been charged with crimes, we have somebody famous who's been sued, there can be instances where other folks jump on the bandwagon. And I'm not suggesting that's what's happening here, but it is something that everyone needs to look at skeptically.
Right.
Motherfucker
Absolutely.
crazy.
If you were to bring a lawsuit against someone like Justin Combs or any of these, and even the cases involving his dad, and you're bringing a civil suit, what facts do you need to have? I mean, certainly if you have a victim who says that this happened and they're ready to, they're able to provide some corroborating evidence that something happened, what do you actually need to be able to go to the courthouse and say, I'm filing a lawsuit against this person?
I think that you need to have somebody who's willing to state under oath that this is what happened to me, that this is what I'm alleged. These are my damages. This is how it's impacted me. And as an attorney, again, I would want to make sure, especially in a lawsuit like this, where it involves a high-profile person, but quite frankly, in any lawsuit, that there is some corroborating information out there so that my lawsuit isn't tossed out of court pretty quickly.
And reading through this complaint, it mentions several other lawsuits. You have the lawsuit from Rodney Jones, who's known as Little Rod, and Sean Combs is facing that lawsuit, and his son was named in it, but has since been dropped. What do you make about it having all these other different cases and elements brought in? What is the attorney here trying to prove?
Well, it almost appears as if the attorney is saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. So here are all these other lawsuits, and I've reviewed the complaint, and they talk about them in some detail. They don't just list them. They say, this happened on this date, and this person sued Sean Combs here, and this person sued Sean Combs here for this set of facts and circumstances. And they're essentially trying to say, because there's all these other lawsuits, you should give this one a stamp of approval, because again, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Tony Busby, his law firm, is bringing this. He has been in the civil world a very, very prominent name. For those who don't know him, and you work in criminal defense, what do you know about Tony Busby? Knowing that it's his law firm bringing this, what does that tell you?
I don't think that the Busby law firm is taking these allegations lightly. I believe they have the resources to do their own investigations prior to actually filing these suits. So this isn't some, sole practitioner who's trying to jump on the cottage industry that's been created around suing Sean Combs. I think that they have the ability to investigate this. They have the ability to decide whether or not they want to take on these cases. And I think that does lend some credibility, albeit, not a ton, but I think it does lend some credibility to the facts and circumstances surrounding it. In other words, this alleged victim didn't just walk in off the street to some random law firm who then is saying, oh, we now have the ability to sue Sean Combs. This is someone who's been down this well-trod path before and probably knows exactly what the pitfalls are in suing somebody as prominent as Sean Combs.
This lawsuit came down at the time we're recording this, came down last night. So that was a couple hours after the government finished their closing arguments against Sean Combs. And as we're recording this right now, Sean Combs, his defense team is giving his closing argument. What do you make about the timing of this? It's against Justin Combs and Sean Combs' name, but it's happening right in the middle of maybe the most pivotal part of this entire trial.
I don't exactly know what to make of the timing of it. I think it's interesting. I think that I'm a little surprised that it's come out so late, but sometimes, we don't know what led the victim in this lawsuit to break their silence and to file this lawsuit. Perhaps they were watching the testimony or reviewing the testimony in the criminal case and said, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me. Perhaps they said, they listened to the testimony and they said, there are so many victims here. I believe that I am one too. We don't know what prompted it. I think the timing is interesting, but I don't know that I can make anything of it as we sit here right now.
I think of recently you had Tyler Perry, prominent name in Hollywood, very different case, but accused of sexual violence and sexual harassment, workplace harassment with an actor who had worked on one of his shows, and the actor provided text messages in the complaint. This doesn't have that. Very different case. But the fact that there's not that visual evidence that we can look at, and I don't know what type of visual evidence would exist in a case like this, but the fact that we don't particularly have those, does that take away from the weight of what this lawsuit may actually be in the end when it comes to the truth?
Well, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, because the filing of a complaint is just simply the first step. And all the complaint needs to do, on paper anyway, is set forth the factual allegations that are enough to sort of not get the case thrown out at the first few stages. And that bar is pretty low. So there may be tons of evidence surrounding these allegations that aren't in the lawsuit. They don't need to be in the lawsuit. Again, there needs to be just enough to get us through those first few steps. Excuse me.
As Sean Combs, we're awaiting, once the jury gets the case next week, and then we'll see what the verdict is. But guilty or not guilty, he's going to be dealing with a lot of civil cases that are still pending. What does the timeline look like for Sean Combs? Let's just say he's found not guilty of everything. What does the legal timeline look for him? How long could he be dealing with the issues related to all these civil suits?
Forever.
That's a great question. First of all, I don't think he's going to be found not guilty of everything. So that's a separate issue entirely.
Wow.
Having said that, again, different jurisdictions have different statutes of limitations for sex assault victims to bring lawsuits within which, or timelines within which they can bring the lawsuits. And so again, depending on where allegations come from, those statutes of limitations can be very long. It also matters on how old the alleged victim was at the time that the incident took place. For example, there have been a number of states which have extended statutes of limitations for minors who were sexually assaulted. Those statutes of limitations are much longer than for adults who've been sexually assaulted. So it really does depend. And I know that's not quite answering the question, but I suppose the easiest answer is it could go on for quite some time.
And you look at this complaint, the complaint is for sexual assault and battery, gender violence, negligent supervision. I think a lot of people would look at this and they'd certainly, if all of this is true, what a horrific experience that this victim went through. Why is this not a criminal case?
That's a great question. And I suppose that this victim could have brought this to the county attorney's office or whatever local prosecutorial body there are. We don't know the answer to that. Perhaps quite frankly, we simply don't know the answer to that. But it's also important to remember this, that Sean Combs is named in this lawsuit. I have reviewed this lawsuit. The connection to Sean Combs is pretty thin from a legal standpoint. It just is. So we don't know why this wasn't brought forth criminally. Perhaps the person decided they would rather seek, their own form of justice from a civil standpoint. Sean Combs has a lot going on criminally right now, and perhaps it wouldn't even be prosecuted. Again, if he's found guilty of all these offenses in federal court in New York, Sean Combs is going to prison for decades. He's 55 years old, not that old, but he's still going to prison for a very long time. So I don't know that the LA District Attorney's Office or whatever prosecutorial body is out there would bother pursuing criminal charges if Sean Combs at age 55 just gets a 30-year sentence federal.
And for Justin Combs, and I assume he'll have, he has, I don't know if he has a trust or an inheritance or how he financially makes a living. Certainly it's part of being in the circle
Man, that nigga
of
beat
Sean
this case, he
Combs.
gonna be the king.
How does he pay
I'm
for
telling
an
you.
attorney? Is that have
You
to
ain't
come
gonna
from,
get-
because I think
you
if
ain't
Sean
gonna
Combs
get
is
that.
found guilty and all this money, and he's got a lot, but maybe we don't know how much money Sean Combs has, frankly, but we know that it's going to a lot of these cases. How does Justin Combs defend himself? Does this get wrapped into, if his dad's going to have to defend against this, is it a 2-for-1 when it comes from the defense side?
It could be. We certainly don't know what the corporate structure is of Bad Boy Records and all the other entities that are named as defendants in this lawsuit. I have a feeling that Justin Combs will get counsel. I have a feeling that Justin Combs will get excellent counsel. How it gets paid for is probably something we'll never know, but it's not as if, he's going to be flipping through Google looking for a lawyer to represent him on this.
And even if a lawsuit has no merit to it whatsoever, and this is more just a hypothetical question, because I think some people do look at some of the Tony Busby lawsuits, and there's an idea of all of these are just a money grab. And we'll see, to your point, a very prominent name who is representing alleged victims to Sean Combs. But if someone were to file a lawsuit that's fruitless, you still, as the person who is being accused in that lawsuit, would have to pay for an attorney, have to show up in court and kind of play along. Is that you have to play along with the lawsuit until it's dismissed?
Sure. I mean, you can't read a lawsuit and say, this is garbage, crumple it up and throw it away and then ignore it. It doesn't work like that. You would have to get a lawyer who is able to get in front of a judge and explain to the court why this lawsuit is frivolous and should get cut off at the soonest possible opportunity. And as I said, there's now a whole cottage industry surrounding these Sean Combs lawsuits. There just is. So, no one can afford to simply ignore this lawsuit and pretend it didn't happen. It needs to be addressed, frivolous or not. Again, I certainly don't know if it is frivolous, but regardless, everybody who's named as the defendant here does need to take it seriously.
For this plaintiff, beyond assuming, Diddy's defense has said that there's no merit to this story. We haven't heard at the time of this recording from what Justin Combs, his representatives are saying. Right now he's sitting in court listening to the closing argument that his father's defense team is making. But beyond a witness's account, and she says she was there and this happened.
We're going to go to something else, y'all, real fast. We're going to stay on the Diddy topic right now. I got 2 other videos after this, so maybe we could go all night till the sun come up, man. Y'all know I got the content now. But that was about his son. Like, that's his son. Like, and it's kind of funny that, the lawsuit comes up like in the middle of the trial when this nigga finna get out. Like, that's wild, y'all. Y'all be thinking that stuff be crazy all the time and I don't know, man. First they want to lock you up, then they want to break you. It's crazy. So I go with the life of a millionaire, man. But yeah, man, we days away, man.
Sean,
we are days away, man, from them seeing what they about to do with this guy, man. Shout out to all the new subs, man. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe, man. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Link is on the community wild if somebody want to come through and respectfully add. Definitely down with that. But yeah, the fate is in the jury's hand. Diddy's fate is in the jury's hands right now, y'all.
Diddy Combs, it is a full recap of day 28 of the trial. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so let's talk about what happened today in court, day 28. Let me bring back in Law and Crime's in-court reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who's been there every day for all of the testimony, all of the action. Elizabeth, always great to see you. Thank you so much. So first up, we found out about scheduling, right? We found out when both sides are going to be finishing up, when the jury might be handed over the case. We even found out how long each side's going to have for closing arguments, which, by the way, I will tell you, I think it's one of the most important parts of this entire trial, given how complicated it is and how many different elements there are and how much the jury has to consider, and putting it all into context. Closing arguments so important. So what do we learn about scheduling?
Yeah, well, we learned that this case is wrapping up very quickly. I think in a way that's kind of shocking to even myself, where it's like, oh my God, we're really at the beginning of the end. Because from what both parties were explaining in court today, it seems like both sides are ready and geared up for closing arguments to happen as soon as Thursday. And yes, Jesse, both sides are going to have plenty of time to get their final message to the jurors before they go and deliberate. And so each side will have an abundance of time, pretty much 4 hours for each side. And so the day, as far as Thursday goes, it should take up most of the day for closings, because of 4 hours each, that's 8 hours, probably a lunch break in between. So we should see closings happen all day on Thursday. And then because they're going to be taking up most of the duration on Thursday, we can expect that the jury won't even get the case until Friday. And so things are moving pretty quickly. Now, whether or not the jury actually comes to a verdict on Friday, that's a wait and see. But for the most part, we can kind of finally see the beginning of the end with this case.
Yeah, 4 hours each for closings. I think they'll probably want all that time. I know that the first thing that's going to happen after the defense, after the prosecution finishes up their case, The defense is going to have this Rule 29 motion where basically after the prosecution, the government closes its case. They basically say, Judge, there's nothing for the jury to consider. You look at everything that was presented. You have to enter a judgment of acquittal on these charges because the evidence presented is insufficient to sustain a conviction. Probably not going to be successful for them. And then you move into the defense's case, which, by the way, we found out about that too. I mean, there was a point when we thought the defense was going to call a number of witnesses.
Yeah, and it never happened.
Anymore? Are they not calling any witnesses? Are they just putting on?
Yeah. That's how they
like
do
there was
it.
kind of a lot of mixed messaging this morning in terms of whether or not the defense will call witnesses.
Man, it's called pump faking. It's called pump faking. That's the scare tactics that they use, and that's why I'm telling you all this shit be seeming weird. See, when a nigga go to pulling these rabbit names out the hat, nigga, and go to really telling on people. See, I'm telling y'all, that's what it's about. Man, that nigga could easily tell on some important people, fool. All the shit they said was lies. The spike baby or spike water. Feeling woozy with. Man, listen, man. Y'all bitches took some Molly. Y'all know what it was. It just didn't sit right with you. You never done it before, bitch. Like, I ain't trying to hear that shit now, dog. Got this man facing racketeering charges, y'all. We talking about gang leader, mob leader charge. Where the fuck is this gang at? Got this nigga facing charges that pimps get. Where the hoes at? The feds, y'all fucked up on this one. Y'all know y'all did too. I was waiting, like, we talking about racketeering, you have to have a co-conspirator. So I'm steady watching. I'm steady watching to see who's going to be this big co-conspirator since they doing this no-name shit. You know who the co-conspirator is? Nobody. It's nobody. Y'all just using this shit on every black man. Oh, Rico, we gonna hit him with that because it's gonna keep him in jail in the feds forever. Hey, y'all fucked up on this one right here.
Or whether or not they'll just put in a bunch of exhibits and that'll kind of be the most of their case in chief. But from my understanding of it all, they still plan to call at least maybe one, maybe two witnesses. That is my understanding of everything. I know a lot of people would rather this case kind of wrap up and everything quickly, but it seems, again, from my understanding, that the defense at least plans to put on a couple of witnesses. Now, whether or not one of those witnesses is Sean Combs, I doubt that's going to happen, mainly because they plan on summations or closing arguments to be happening on Thursday. But initially, Jesse, they had kind of, I wouldn't say a laundry list, but they had a long, lengthy list of witnesses that they were possibly planning on calling. Now, obviously, that dwindled all the way down. And then initially, when we were kind of getting towards the end of the government's case, the defense was like, okay, we plan on calling Dr. Bardet, we plan on calling Bashta, we plan on calling another witness.
Let's just say if you don't like the message,
that
you know what to do.
three-person witness list already trickled down probably to maybe one or two of those folks, possibly Bashta Dunlap, possibly Dr. Bardet. So we'll wait and see when the defense takes over for their case. But for the most part, it seems like the defense case isn't going to be lasting as long as they initially anticipated, when they initially thought it would be at least maybe 2 to 5 trial days. It seems like for the most part, it'll be just a day, maybe even a day and a half.
Yeah, some outlets are reporting that the defense is not planning on calling any witnesses. So we're getting mixed messaging. I'm happy you were there to like straighten it out for us, because I'll tell you, I think it's interesting. If they call no witnesses or they call a limited amount of witnesses, it says something about how they feel about this case. They might feel that through cross-examination of key witnesses, key prosecution witnesses, and maybe just some of the text messages that came out, enough reasonable doubt has formed. There's nothing more for them to do. Now, you talked about Sean Combs not taking the stand. Yeah, as of right now, based on the scheduling, doesn't appear he's going to take the stand. However, he could wake up tomorrow. It's his decision and his decision alone. He could wake up tomorrow and say, no, I want to tell my side of the story. His attorneys can't stop him. He will take the stand. It's up in the air. Probably not going to do it, particularly after the scheduling today. But We'll see. I've been shocked before. Maybe I'll be shocked again. Now, after all the scheduling, now after what we can anticipate for the rest of the week, we saw the continued testimony of this special agent for Homeland Security investigations, this summary witness, literally summarizing or condensing a lot of the digital evidence in this case. And it seems to me that the prosecutors are really trying to illustrate that the connective thread, this connective thread with Sean Combs, his associates, and Jane, alleged victim 2 in this case, to set up all of these wild king nights. So you're really placing Sean Combs in the middle of it. Not that he can't say, oh, I don't know what was being set up on my behalf. I showed up at a hotel room and I'm shocked to find what I found. Not so quite. And it's either that he was an integral part of this, assuming at the very least these were sites of prostitution, which is, transportation to engage in prostitution. The allegation being that he transported sex workers and alleged victims for the purposes of sex work, or at the worst case for him, that these are sites of sex trafficking. So Elizabeth, before we even get into the audio tapes of Sean Combs, I want to ask you about that separately. So I understand more flight records and the payment of travel. This was all discussed, as well as setting up the rooms for these sexual episodes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Jesse, I will say this about some of the summary charts that the jury was able to see today. It was something that a lot of us in the gallery weren't able to see because it had a lot of sensitive information, specifically relating to Jane. And so, unfortunately, for the most part, especially at the beginning of the day, we didn't see all of these charts and graphs that were all put together, but I was able to try to jot down as much as I could, especially as Maureen Comey was kind of going pretty fast with this witness. But for example, we heard about one particular kind of flight summary chart that was between September 24th of 2022 and September 25th of 2022. And the location was Mapleton Home, which is Diddy's residence over in Los Angeles, as well as in Vegas too, where the names associated with that particular time frame were Jane, Sean Combs, and Paul being an entertainer that Jane and Sean Combs would use in their hotel nights. And so the jury was able to see kind of financial records, that being $2,500 that was sent over to Paul. The flight records, I wasn't able to write it down as fast as I possibly could, but there were flight records that were attached to that. But then also there were just more charts just really talking about the payment. So for example, there was one payment from September 17th of 2023 through September 19th of 2023. It was about a hotel booking, particularly the Trump Hotel in New York and the Whitby Hotel 2. The names associated with that particular booking were Jane, Sean Combs, Robert, and Cabral. And then Jane, she had a flight out from LAX to JFK, Cabral from Atlanta to Newark, and then Newark back to Atlanta, where the jury was able to see Venmo payments totaling $1,000 that was sent to Robert. Then they were able to see text messages associated with just kind of the financial records associated with Cabral, where Jane texted Cabral saying, I'm going to check on the status of the cash for you. Then we see more things, or we hear about more charts that have to do with Jonathan Perez, one of Sean Combs' assistants, Jane and Cabral. It was assigned to the Trump Hotel, room 0508. The arrival date was around that same time frame, September 17th of 2023. And then the payment method was an Amex, and the account holder, that being Sean Combs. And so the jury was able to kind of see all of that, including an American Express credit card bill where there was a charge for the Trump Hotel for $2,597.11, another charge for $2,490.17. They were able to see transportation. It was through Premier Travel and JetBlue obviously being an airline, and that was transportation in relation to Jane and kind of how she was able to possibly get over here to New York. And then the account holder for that was Jessica Ruiz. However, what we know about Jessica Ruiz is she was a travel agent that Sean Combs would use in order to kind of set up these arrangements. And so the flights were paid for with Amex under Jessica Ruiz's name. That was also under Bad Boy Entertainment, or Bad Boy in general. Then there were just more records for the flight for Cabral, again, around the same time frame, that being September 18th of 2023 through September 19th of 2023. The account holder was under Jane's name. However, there was a wire transfer to Jane Doe from Sean Combs. And so I think that was another kind of point where they were saying, even though the account holder might be assigned to Jane, the money that was coming in, according to the government, was first coming in through a wire transfer from Sean Combs. So that way Jane was able to book this flight or get whoever over to wherever they were going to be in terms of planning for hotel nights. And then there were emails even between Robin Greenhill to Team Combs where Robin sent a screenshot where the message included in that particular screenshot was, hey, please send Jane $5,000. And so the jury was able to see even more charts of services that were received from Brendan Paul, Cabral Williams, travel agency charges, other charges, including just to hotel rooms. And so it was a lot of just charts, first of all, but also just a way for everything to just be in one place in terms of if the flight was booked for this particular date, here are all the financial records associated with that. And it seems like from the government's kind of argument about this all is that all roads kind of lead back to Sean Combs in terms of who was the one paying for all of this to be happening, all for the entertainers, and even in this case for Jane to be coming out to these hotel rooms, and in this case, New York, but also in other places like Los Angeles and Vegas too.
Hey, I want to take a quick minute to thank Upside for sponsoring our coverage of Sean Diddy Combs' trial. Now, Upside is amazing. It is a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas, groceries. I pump my gas, I can use Upside. I go out to lunch, I can use Upside. Maybe I get something at a convenience store, I can use Upside. And why not get cash back when doing all these things, right? Yes, this is actual real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app mean before they even start deciding the case. And again, we anticipate closings tomorrow. Probably going to extend into Friday, too. In fact, we learned a little bit more about that today, too. Prosecutor Maureen Comey even said that the jury may end up not even starting their deliberations till next week, till Monday. But let's talk about what happened today. And for that, let me bring in law and crimes reporter Elizabeth Milner, who has been in that courtroom all day. For everybody who knows, we're recording this right now at like almost 8 o'clock at night. You have been in the courtroom all day. It's been a very, very tiring day, Elizabeth, but great to see you. I have to ask you about the beginning of the day. When we woke up, we found out the government filed this letter regarding jury instructions. And remember, to prove racketeering conspiracy, the government needs to prove at least 2 underlying predicate crimes, essentially. There's arson, there's forced labor, there's kidnapping, there's bribery, there's witness tampering, all to support this idea of there was a criminal enterprise and that Combs and others engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity, a pattern of illegal activity. But then we get this letter from the government, and it says, quote, the government has removed instructions from the charge related to attempted kidnapping under both California and New York law, attempted arson under California law, and aiding and abetting sex trafficking. The government is no longer planning to proceed on these theories of liability, so instructions are no longer necessary. So people might be thinking, oh my gosh, they dropped those underlying crimes, right? Problem is, if you go to the indictment, the latest indictment, for kidnapping and arson, it specifically lays out multiple theories under state law. So there's the actual crimes themselves, it's kidnapping and arson, but there's also conspiracy to commit arson, kidnapping, there's aiding and abetting kidnapping and arson, there's attempted kidnapping and arson. So my initial thought is, maybe they're not getting rid of arson and kidnapping as a whole, but only those specific theories, meaning we're arguing Combs engaged in conspiracy to commit arson, but not attempted arson. And remember, this all relates to the testimony of Kid Cudi, Capricorn Clark, Cassie Ventura. That's what we talk about with kidnapping and arson. So, Elizabeth, did you hear anything today in court to provide any kind of clarity on whether arson or kidnapping are still part of this case?
Yeah, I was expecting to hear just something along the lines of that. And, with the government and the defense going just so fast in their arguments, I was really thinking, oh my God, did I miss
that? He don't think that Diddy burnt up
even really touched upon this issue when court began finally at 3:45 today, because initially it was going to start at 12, then it was going to start at 2, then it was going to start at 3. Then the defense needed a little more time to read some things through. So then it started at 3:45. And so just as far as, because a lot of people have been like, oh my God, charges are dropped. Oh my God, this case is over. The government, it wasn't any of that. Because to your point, Jesse, the government said in their letter it was only applying to attempted kidnapping under California and New York law, attempted arson under California law, and aiding and abetting sex trafficking. But as far as just a big moment, as far as them going into maybe more layman's terms on just what this all meant, they didn't go into that. And it was kind of disappointing. I was hoping they would kind of speak more about that, but really they were just going over these proposed instructions one by one by one, page by page by page.
So, okay, look, we'll find out tomorrow. I still think arson, kidnapping are a big part of this case. They spend so much time talking about the firebombing of Kid Cudi's car, talking about whether Capricorn Clark was kidnapped in different instances, whether or not Cassie was kidnapped in the 2016 video. So I'm sure it's still part of it, but we'll see. Okay, there was a big delay in court. You talked about it. Did I hear this right? It had something to do about, what, a constitutional challenge? I mean, something was going on with the attorneys and the judge. Did you find any clarity about that?
Well, when we first got into court today around 3 o'clock, because initially we were all sat down and ready to go at 2 o'clock. Then we heard from the marshals and the bailiffs that, this is getting pushed now to 3. But initially what we did learn is that, the parties have agreed to the verdict form, but then the defense asked for just a little more time. Now, initially they wanted 30 minutes. And again, this being around 3 o'clock. So initially we thought, okay, they're going to start at 3:30. Then the defendant, that of course being Sean Combs, wanted just a little bit more time to review these documents. So they pushed it to 3:45. But as far as just what the defense wanted in terms of what document they wanted to read to just get more clarity, because, as more documents are coming in, as more objections are coming in, as we're getting towards the end of the trial, the defense just wanted to take an extra look and an extra careful look at the latest charging document. And so they took that time to do it. Then we came back at 3:45, and then we really started kind of getting into those jury instructions, just really, again, piece by piece by piece.
Let's get into it. So the first one that there seemed to be a lot of debate about, not surprising, one of the most complicated charges of this case, racketeering conspiracy. There are a number of different parts to this. What did they say? Did they come to a decision about what is conspiracy? What is a criminal agreement? What is a criminal enterprise? Some of the big highlights that you saw between the prosecution and the defense, and do we have any kind of answers as to what the jury is going to be instructed regarding the top charge in this case, the charge that carries up to life in prison?
Yeah, and it seems like because it comes with such a hefty penalty of the possibility of life in prison, right, Jesse, that they took so much time really just going through all the thorough details, especially as it pertains to count 1, that being racketeering conspiracy, aka RICO. So right off the bat, they get to page 13 and the government had an objection, because when I say page by page by page, they really took it page 1, does anyone have objections to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by the time they got to page 13, the government objected kind of to the end of the page when it came to the conspiracy instruction, because the government wanted a note about co-conspirators and how they might not have known, but they can still be a part of the conspiracy. Whereas the defense said in an argument that some of the co-conspirators, like Christina Quorum, like KK, didn't know what was going on. So the defense objected to that because they said that's not necessary. They say that the law requires a co-conspirator join the agreement. Shapiro, again, Alexandra Shapiro making these arguments on behalf of the defense here. But she had said that the issue was the knowledge of the alleged conspiracy. So what ended up happening is the judge overruled the government's objection, and he said that further clarification can be addressed in closing argument. So then the defense had an objection to that same page, but then a different line where the line was in reference to actions speak louder than words. And the defense says it makes it seem like circumstantial evidence is more important than direct evidence. And so the judge says that he will change the sentence in context of conspiracy actions may speak louder than words. So again, this is all about the language here, where they're just adding little things here and there where it doesn't seem either prejudicial to the defendant, or that way they can make it very simple for the jury to really kind of understand this. So even in terms of just adding that little word like may is going to be added to those jury instructions. But another thing that they were really kind of talking about was the 4th element of RICO, because the government is saying that, it's more accurate to talk about the agreement of affairs. And their proposal was that the elements reflect the defendant knowingly agreed with co-conspirators, knowingly and unknowingly. And the defense was like, well, that actually goes to the 4th element. And then the judge ended up overruling the government's objection because it says it kind of conflates with the 1st and 4th element of RICO. Truly, it was a lot of legalese that they were kind of spelling out there. And so even in terms of just, again, it seemed like most of their arguments, especially in the first part of court today, was really just about RICO and the co-conspirators. So the defense had an objection to a line that said that the person must be common to the group
Shit
as a
crazy.
whole.
I
And they
told
were
y'all.
saying the government is conflating things, that the purpose
They doing
has to be a
some
common
shit.
purpose. There's a lot of case law
They
about the
fucked
common
up.
purpose. Again, the defense making this argument. The judge said that the proposed language might confuse the jury, and that common purpose could be a number of different things. And so Alexandra Shapiro asked if this could be added. The purpose must be a common purpose and can't merely represent one individual's own self-interest. So they were just talking about adding, if not shared, as the group as a whole. And then the government's like, okay, well, I don't think this is an instruction that should be receiving. They don't agree with the case necessarily cited. The judge agreed that he wasn't going to add the language, so he ended up overruling the defense's objection. And so it seemed like, for the most part, Jesse, that really it was kind of like, what did the co-conspirators know? What did the defendant know in terms of just, were they committing these, alleged criminal acts knowingly or unknowingly, those types of things? Because they even talked about just the core group overall, and how the government was saying the core included this chief of staff, the security, and then they kind of pointed to things like D-Rock as the security. And again, so really just kind of focusing on that core group of people and whether or not they're all co-conspirators and things of that sort.
Look, the prosecution wants it as broad as possible, right? Because that's the way that they can actually convict them. The defense wants it as specific as possible so that the prosecution can't meet the burden here. They can't meet the elements. And it's important when you talk about what's the common purpose here. Was it just to serve and benefit Diddy, or was there a different common purpose? Was it a larger common purpose? So the criminal agreement, the criminal enterprise, the common purpose, that's all one part of racketeering. Then I mentioned you have these underlying predicate crimes. I understand today that was a big point of discussion too, right? What about forced labor? Maybe not arson, kidnapping, but forced labor, maybe bribery or tampering with a witness. Any highlights from what we should be thinking about in terms of the underlying predicate crimes the prosecution has to prove as part of RICO conspiracy?
Yeah, they definitely spend a lot of time mainly talking about obstruction too. So for example, on page 29 of these proposed jury instructions, the government said that they're not required to prove that there was an ongoing federal case or investigation. And they asked that that language be included in the jury instructions. And at first I was kind of a little confused about this argument. I was like, okay, what does this have to do with what? Because, when we're inside that courtroom, we're not seeing these pages on the exhibit screens and nothing like that. We're really just taking their word as in terms of just listening to their argument. So I kind of got where they were going with this, because the government was saying that they're not required to prove that the conspirator knew that there was an investigation. Then the defense kind of chimes in and they say that the defendant still has to know or still has to have something in mind. And then I kind of thought about it in just terms of the testimony. And I think it's kind of related a little bit to Mia, because remember when Mia was on the witness stand, she said after Cassie's lawsuit came out that shortly afterwards, D-Rock had messaged her. And so I think they were kind of trying to say that maybe the defense was kind of trying to say that Diddy didn't know that there was a federal investigation going on at this time. And so this whole allegation of obstruction in terms of reaching out to Mia, maybe possibly getting, her, word of approval to go and talk about, whether or not that Cassie and Sean Combs had this toxic relationship or not, or even just the allegations that Mia had while she was on the witness stand talking about how she thought that there was kind of this insinuation that, money would be given to her if she were to, make a statement in favor of Sean Combs. And so that's when it kind of really kind of clicked to me. But then the government is like, okay, I think the nexus is about communicating with the federal officer. And so the judge says that he'll consider copying the language from the obstruction part into this particular part of the jury instruction. Then when we kind of talk about forced labor, when they were talking about forced labor, the government objected to some lines just including that labor services include sexual services. And they kind of say it's supported by the R. Kelly decision. So the government says that they will argue that sexual labor falls under the statute. And they said that we need to make it clear to the jury that this is a different kind of labor and it falls within labor and services, where the defense says clearly sex trafficking can fall under forced labor. And they kind of pointed to their motion for acquittal argument that they had made just yesterday. And so the judge ended up overruling the government's objection, because he said that the concern is that the jury may be confused that sexual services automatically count as laboring services. And so the government will have a chance to kind of argue about this during their summations, aka their closing arguments. And so then there was kind of, just again, the legalese as far as the defense objecting to lines about difficult and compulsory. And they say it goes to mirror what the government argues, that the term labor is sufficient. You don't need to include specially. Again, they're really just kind of making sure that every single word is accurate and perfect for the jury to really kind of understand and really kind of digest it as they're getting all these really kind of like legal jargon, legal words in terms of the instructions that they're going to be eventually given before they are able to deliberate.
Hey there, everybody. So I want to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this episode of Sidebar. Always love talking about them. Now, here is the incredible thing about Morgan & Morgan, and one of the reasons why I like talking about them so much.
Hey, say something about our big win.
Not supposed to come on camera. The reason Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm, is so big, and I'm sure you can guess it, is because they win a lot. And that's
Don't forget huge verdicts.
Yeah, they've won big verdicts, $6.8 million in New York, $26 million in Philadelphia. You see, the thing about them is they don't settle for lowball insurance offers from insurance companies, which is something.
Mention that you can submit a claim from your couch at home and on your phone.
And they've completely modernized the process by submitting your claim, talking to your legal team. It's all done straight from your smartphone. Again, that's something
With
that
8 clicks or less.
8 clicks or less. Yes. You can see if you have a case in just a few minutes.
1,000 lawyers, we have over 1,000 lawyers.
All right. You know what, Dan? If you really think you can do better, maybe you should just do it yourself.
What Jesse was getting at is if you've ever been injured in
A lot for the jury to consider over these past few weeks. It is a complicated case. There is a lot of evidence. There's a lot of testimony. And closings are the last time the jurors will hear from the attorneys before they begin their deliberations. So we begin with the prosecution's closing argument that was delivered by Assistant United States Attorney Christy Slavic, outlining why the jury should find Combs guilty of 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, 1 with respect to Cassie Ventura Fine, 1 with respect to Jane, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Again, 1 with respect to Cassie, 1 with respect to Jane. I want to bring on right now Law and Crimes reporter Elizabeth Milner, who was inside that courtroom for all of those arguments today. Elizabeth, great to see you. Want to take this piece by piece. Let's start it off with racketeering conspiracy. The top charge, arguably the most complicated charge in the mix, carries life in prison. Okay, so there's a lot at stake here. The prosecutor definitely wanted to make it clear for the jury. How did she outline, let's start this, how did she outline that this is a criminal organization, that there was a criminal agreement? Let's start there before we even move into the underlying predicate crimes that the prosecution needs to prove.
Yeah, so right off the bat, Christy Slavic is really talking about count 1, of course, that being racketeering conspiracy, aka RICO. And just right off the bat, she's telling the jury, over the last several weeks, you learned about Sean Combs and then kidnapping an employee, forced labor, arson, bribery, plus brutal crimes are at the heart of the case. She also said, you know, across all of these comes the defendant using his power and violence to get what he wants, and that he doesn't take no for an answer. And so right off at the top of her closing argument, the jury has shown exhibit photos, one of March 2016 Intercontinental Hotel still image from that surveillance video where you can kind of see Cassie on the ground after she was initially physically assaulted by Sean Combs on that videotape. And then also the government talked about Sean Combs kicking, choking, and slapping Jane and forcing her into a freak-off, specifically pointing to the instance that happened in June of 2024. And so, you know, the government was like, you know, these instances are separated by 8 years, but they're kind of saying they're one and the same. But I think the most interesting part of just the beginning of the closing argument by the prosecution is that Christy Slavic is like, Sean Combs has a small army of personal staff. No one could stop him. He uses inner circle and money to cover up his crimes, and even referred to his assistants as foot soldiers and other things like that. So really kind of pointing out how the assistants, how those who were in Sean Combs's inner circle really kind of helped build this case of racketeering conspiracy against the defendant.
Yeah, that he's the leader of this criminal organization, that the assistants, the security, they helped pull off the freak-offs. They knew it was wrong. They were the go-to people. They knew about the sex tapes. They got drugs for freak-offs. You know, Christina Coram, she knew what was going on. D-Rock got ice for Cassie's black eye. So I get it, right? This idea that everybody was on the same page. Now, For the prosecution to win this charge, they have to prove at least 2 underlying predicate crimes, right? And you tell me what stood out the most. Was it forced labor? Was it kidnapping? Was it arson? Which, by the way, there was a whole back and forth yesterday. Oh, is arson and kidnapping still part of the case? Yes, it is. They may have they might have decided to not move forward with attempted arson or attempted kidnapping, but they're still moving forward with actual kidnapping and arson or conspiracy to commit these crimes. So which of the underlying crimes really stood out to you today? I know the prosecution addressed all of them, but was it forced labor? Was it the drug offenses? Was it arson? Was it kidnapping? Was it bribery? Which were the ones that you think if the jury has to decide, oh, these are the 2 we're going to find them guilty of, or we think these are the predicate crimes for racketeering, this pattern of criminal activity, which were some of the ones that stood out to you?
Well, to your point, Jesse, the prosecution laying out again that the government only has to prove 2 of these acts, but as they're listing drug distribution, kidnapping, arson, bribery, sex trafficking, forced labor, witness tampering, interstate transportation for prostitution, you really could pick any of them because I feel like the government made very strong cases for all of them. But some of the ones that really kind of stood out to me, and I think for maybe a different way than maybe people think, was kind of drug distribution, because I think a lot of people, in terms of just the drugs and overall kind of components that go to it, that people think, Sean Combs had to be transporting, kilos and large quantities of drugs. But really, the government was kind of laying out that delivering or passing on drugs kind of count as distribution. And so I think Christy Slavic made a pretty strong argument where she said a special ingredients that, talking about the drugs, were required for freak-off. So each and every time she's kind of talking about the predicate act, she's talking about all the players involved. So in terms of drug distribution, she specifically talked about D-Rock, KK, and Fahim Muhammad. And so the 2 elements that kind of go with that is that the co-conspirators distributed the drugs, but also the second element being that the co-conspirator distributed the drugs knowingly. And so she listed all the drugs out because drugs was something that was very common throughout all the testimony that the witnesses had. So she talked about cocaine, meth, ketamine, oxycodone, Xanax, MDMA, GHB, 2C, and mushrooms as well. And so she said that the quantity is not relevant. It's not an element of this crime. And so she says, the jury has heard a number of names, including Guido, One Stop, Baby Girl, as some of the drug dealers that were used, but also just the money that kind of goes and is attached to just, the assistants reaching out to KK or Fahim Muhammad, talking about reimbursement for payments such as $450 of a balance for drugs or $780 to go towards the personal Gucci items. And as they talked about throughout a lot of witness testimony, the Gucci items normally refer to the drugs that were in a specific Gucci bag that Sean Combs always had on his person, or that the assistants were required to carry just near and around Sean Combs. But even in terms of just distributing the drugs to others, the prosecution named a number of people that it kind of falls under there, where it's including Cassie and Jane and Carrie Morgan and Bonna and Mia, and how Mia and Brendan Paul specifically were even made to kind of partake in this drug use. Mia testified that she kind of was given a different batch of all these different drugs, and it was kind of like a guessing game of which drug was which drug, and she had to take a line of it. Whereas Brendan Paul talked about the first time he did drugs outside of marijuana was 2C with Sean Combs in order to kind of prove his loyalty. But I think another big thing, Jesse, was just the kidnapping aspect, because to your point, a lot of people are like, oh my God, there's no more kidnapping. Oh my God, there's no more arson. But the prosecution laid out 3 instances of kidnapping. One in January of 2009 when Cassie's face was stomped on and she was held at a hotel because Sean Combs got upset that she was talking to a producer, and Cassie drunkenly punched Sean Combs in the face, and then he physically assaulted her, and that Sean Combs forced her to stay in a hotel for a week, and that the security guard told her that she couldn't leave that hotel. And so the prosecution was like, Cassie didn't consent to staying at the London hotel during this particular alleged incident of kidnapping. Then there was another time where they brought it back to 2004 here in New York City with Capricorn Clark and the lie detector test after the jewelry went missing, and how the government said a person restricted victims' movements by confining her to a place. And so the prosecution laid out that the man who administered the test said if she refused, she would be thrown into the East River. That was something that Capricorn Clark had even testified to. And then obviously the biggest instance was December of 2011 with the whole Kid Cudi kind of aspect where Capricorn Clark says that a gun was pointed at her face by Sean Combs. She was forced into this car and was driven over to Kid Cudi's home, all because Sean Combs was upset that he being Kid Cudi was seeing but that Capricorn had even testified again that Sean Combs held a gun at her. She didn't want to go with him, and that all the players involved with that particular instance of alleged kidnapping was Capricorn Clark, Rue, who was a security guard, Sean Combs, how they drove over to Kid Cudi's home, and Capricorn Clark didn't consent. Now, obviously, Jesse, there's a number of other interesting points where you talk about bribery and other things too that are very interesting, but those to me are the ones that definitely stood out the most.
Yeah, bribery. Eddie Garcia, the hotel security guard who was allegedly paid $100,000 that he split with others to hand over the videotape of Sean Combs reportedly beating Cassie.
That's not.
That was a
that ain't
significant point. Forced labor. The idea of Mia, this personal assistant, being allegedly sexually assaulted by Sean Combs, but also the idea of the two main alleged victims in this case, Jane and Cassie. They were forced to perform sex acts, right? This forced labor.
We're not saying like but what we're saying is there ain't no dang racketeering or no human trafficking. Them the crimes that can get him sent up the way for a long time, y'all. Like that's the stuff that can get him. That's not that. Yeah, he's supposed to go to jail. We talking about the charges that can get him a life sentence in the feds. Nigga, like, go on and get that nigga 5 to 7 years and leave it alone. Cause y'all dropped the ball on this one, the feds.
Concept. So let's talk about Jane and let's talk about Cassie. Let's take it piece by piece. They each make up, as I said, individual sex trafficking counts and individual counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. But when we talk about sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, let's talk about Jane. What did the prosecutor say today in closing arguments to say that Jane is a victim of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion? What did she say about that?
Well, I think, Jesse, the sex trafficking aspect as it specifically pertains to Jane is pretty interesting because the government says you only have to find one instance of sex trafficking. So sure, the government has a very long list of all these different flights and locations and hotel rooms, all to kind of point out that all of these instances of hotel nights were possibly alleged sex trafficking, but only the jury has to find one particular instance. And then the defendant, in the perfect way the government probably wants, is guilty of sex trafficking. But as it comes to Jane, and by the way, whenever they were talking about Jane, the gallery screen that we're able to see that kind of shows the public and the media and everyone who's sitting inside the courtroom, that was completely shut off. So only the jury is seeing these particular exhibits, the text messages, the photos, as it pertains to Jane, mainly because, of Jane, she testified under a pseudonym and they just want to protect her privacy just a little bit more. But in terms of just the different stages of sex trafficking, the government said that the first stage was Jane kind of learning about the drugs and the outfits and putting pornography on, because they were saying that Sean Combs kind of groomed Jane into sex trafficking. So they say that the first stage, again, being the drugs, the outfits, putting pornography on, something that kind of Diddy enjoyed according to her testimony. But she said the second stage was the fantasy talk, and how the fantasy talk kind of pertained to Jane with other men, and that Sean Combs made it happen eventually. And then that third stage was using a payment of rent, because as we know, Sean Combs was paying for her rent $10,000 a month, which we learned during the trial that he's still paying for even at this time, but that payment of rent was used as leverage. And so Chrissy Slavic is like, he reminds her he can take things away from her anytime that he wants to. And so the government said that the hotel nights weren't about what Jane wanted, it was about what the defendant wanted. He made Jane sex with the entertainers because, as the defense kind of pointed out, using Jane's messages kind of in a way against her, we're saying, okay,
it ain't came out yet. It's still in their hands.
Entertainers all on her own, but the government is saying that Sean Combs made Jane kind of sex with these entertainers, and that Jane wanted the escorts to wear condoms. However, Sean Combs didn't want that.
They are resting. We up right now. They're probably resting. Thinking about, is he guilty? Is he not guilty, Mr. Reese? Yeah, we don't know yet. But I think what we're gonna do right now, I think we're gonna go over the court AI. We're just gonna play it all the way through. I think that's what we're gonna do right now. Just play it all the way through so y'all can see the court's transcript. Let y'all congregate amongst each other. We won't stop it. We'll just play it all the way through. You know. Let me see it. I got it on my shit. Do something real quick. Y'all bear with me for a second. See something. I can't find the shit, dog. Let me see. Oh, hold on. Let me get it for you. Get it real fast. Roll me up wood. Nah, but first we're gonna get into something else, and then we're gonna go back to the Diddy. We're gonna go do the Diddy AI after this. There's something else I wanted to show y'all. I want to see if y'all agree or do y'all disagree. And then we're gonna get into this, you know. Then we're gonna go back into the Diddy AI, y'all. I want y'all to listen to something real quick. Shout out to the Danza project. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Danza.
So when you look at,
hold on, I want y'all to.
When you look at what Adam 22 speaks on,
hold on, let me stop this.
And you see how he just met.
Stop it. All right, listen to this real fast. We got Sauce Walker. We got Sauce Walker on Danza 22 talking about Adam. I mean, on the Danza project, talking about Adam 22. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna get into this. Let me put this up for you.
Mentions that I know Sauce Walker. I've been around. You know what I mean? I kicked it with you in Houston. We've been out here a few times. I know you get money. He starts making he starts saying things like, oh, me and my wife make more money than Sauce.
His wife will never he know his wife ain't never made more money than none of me or none of the bitch I ever had. Man, that man can't see my hoe.
This don't take like 15 to 20
That nigga can't see a bitch I can, boy. What?
Talk about Adam. Yeah, they have to.
That's what I'm saying. That's how funny that shit is to me. Like for real, blood. We can just look at life like this. but like he got a production studio. I got a production studio. My shit way bigger than his.
Definitely.
And I have two in two different cities. I have way. I got a way bigger commercial portfolio than this guy. And this man that naturally got on this motherfucker said, going broke and falling off from struggling, you guys.
Yeah.
Help us thinking about letting go of no
Talk
jumping
about Adam
and just
22.
becoming white pumping.
Adam 22 he got more money. That Adam 22.
The whole time, this man is a male cum rag. You a cunt, cook, whatever that stuff called. You sit up here and watch her, whatever it is. You watch your wife get filleted and salade. Man, chill. And then this been trying to offer this so weird, blood. This been offering me his wife for 4-5 years since he first decided that he wanted to put her out there
what
like
he said?
that. He been with trying to like, man, Sauce, cause you like, no.
That shit real. I thought that was like.
Did y'all hear what's up? So for all y'all slow people, I just feel like y'all needed to hear this. That's why I cut this in real fast, and we're gonna get back on top. What he is saying, I keep telling y'all, when it comes to the OnlyFans shit, people can say what they want to say. Yeah, I know it probably been around or whatever. This guy opened up the door for that. That's why he got all this money, boo. So what Adam is saying, you know, he is a porn star. His girl is the porn star. He been trying to get Sauce Walker to give him the sauce or put him on, put his girl on with the shit. This is weird, man.
Trolling or it's like a joke or
No,
something.
weird ass. No, peon, bro. This is a dork. He's bro. He could never. That's what I'm saying. This exploitation of a real can't make me do nothing of that shit. I got more money than you. Even if I didn't have, if I would never have less money than that guy, because he's like, he ain't like what he did when he just started figuring it out.
Yeah,
bro, I was 6 years ahead of this man.
Nah, you're somebody that got a business mind. I just think people try to discredit it.
Like,
yeah.
people, because I play a lot on the internet. I do a lot of childish fun shit, and I'm the way that I am. But like, bro, I've been cracked the code on some scary shit. Like,
yeah,
I just got an infinite bag of money I can just go in.
But then I can't stop laughing just because the way he burst out laughing right there. I thought,
cause that shit really is funny as to me.
Yeah.
Like, when I know this man's situation is nothing. Like, I know the top OnlyFans creators in America, in the world. Like, a lot of these women started off at my mansion in COVID. Like,
I told y'all, dog. Y'all don't want to listen. The guy, and I'm not by any means trying to say exploit that type of stuff, exploit women or that type of whatever. Bro, the man bought a whole mansion. Like some shit like the Playboy guy did. And my nigga, every room was a different scene with different women. From on OnlyFans, he was the first nigga. Nobody was making more money than him, bro. That nigga don't make no money out rap. That nigga made millions off OnlyFans, bro. That shit, this nigga opened up the door for that shit, bro. I don't care what nobody say. And I'm not just sack riding because he from Texas and I'm from Texas. Bro, he did. That's how he made his money, bro. Like, he got a house, start filming porn. Like, start filming porn, opened up the door for the shit, dog.
these people are late.
Sauce Walker.
I was doing this shit where it was like, we're getting $2 million a month.
I told you.
Like, it was a whole different
$2 million
type of
a
algorithm.
month. He was making
You can't
$2
even
million
tap
a
into
month
that
off
algorithm anymore because it doesn't exist.
It don't exist no more.
Doesn't
It
exist.
doesn't exist because it's watered down and dry now that everybody got a hold to it. It's too late now. This kid that ran with the millions want to be a rapper now. Own different businesses, own different, he owns strip clubs, bowling alleys in Houston. That nigga, it's too late now. See, I already knew what was gonna happen. I'm just talking as if I was Sauce Walker. I already knew when everybody got a hold to the drip that it was gonna get saturated. So I ran with the money and put my money into other things.
America is free. This is a 3-year period, 2-year period, however long it was, where 90%, 75% of America was forced to stay within their homes and use mechanical devices all day long to suffice for their time. It's like being a part of an oil thing,
like a gold rush.
Yeah, it's a gold rush. It's like who got lucky and bought crypto when it was $5.30.
Yeah. The difference is you got hoes and he got hoe.
I'm saying
it really is what it is.
I feel like the hoe got him.
What I'm saying is even the side of that he can't. It doesn't matter because even the side of that with the platform that he created, like he made a whole platform to plug all that shit that he made with that shit. You cannot with my third streamer.
I told you.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
It's a difference between.
Nigga, you can't even fuck with the third person he got in his corporation for OnlyFans. You can't even dial. I'm telling you, man, this man is rich. I watched the come up out selling sex on OnlyFans. Bitch, we talking about purchasing mansions, Bentleys, companies, soda waters. Got his own fucking water. Got his own motherfucking armor for your tires. Bro, listen. Bro, the man has a strip club, bro. And in the strip club in Houston, fool, every booth has a PS5 and an Xbox in it with a TV, nigga. When you in the strip club, even though I don't know what for, I don't think we should be gaming while we looking at titties and ass. But yeah, bro, that nigga ain't playing.
I got a whole selection.
I got
whole
exclusive.
selection. Yeah,
I got exclusive product. It's like.
And congratulations to you for opening up Splash House too.
Yeah, man. That's what I'm saying. But I'm corporate. Like I got my whole. I got clubs and shit.
Yeah,
I got a tire shop.
Bro. Yeah. Tire shop.
Brick and mortar, as they call it.
Yeah, brick and mortar.
24 hours tire shop.
I have a soap.
His own soap.
Like I'm finna drop.
I still need the Achilles shit.
I got Achilles.
Yeah.
I have video game on port. Like I got so much shit.
Yup.
That the world that I don't show, and then I got a bunch of shit that I do not show. I was like, I don't think I got my money. I think I would bet to differ my crypto portfolio was probably worth more than Bro.
Bro said his crypto portfolio is worth more than Adam 22. Don't y'all realize that Adam 22 got a $3 million studio? The No Jumper studio is worth $3 million. That nigga Silas talking shit to that nigga. I told y'all, bro, this nigga is like 20, 30, maybe even $50 million back right now.
You did an interview with Sharp, and Sharp had mentioned how he would have rather, or he did the interview with you, and you wouldn't do an interview.
That was his last interview at Adam.
Yeah, bro.
Like he knew that. I only did that. That was a whole nother part of me shitting on Adam and just showing him how little you are to me. Like I will walk in your facility.
I will walk. Hey, this is what you California gang members, and this is not no jab. This is what y'all supposed to do. Y'all supposed to go in there and run that shit. But y'all don't because y'all need the money. See, this is the way a nigga act who don't need the money. Waltz in there, nigga, and do what the fuck I want to do. Say what the fuck I want to say. Bitch, I got more money than you, nigga. That's what you're supposed to do. But see, y'all don't. So y'all bow down to that nigga like puppies. And let him exploit y'all. Let him send y'all to the feds. Let him give y'all pennies. It's crazy.
Disrespect you when I come in. Disrespect you when I go to the interview in the back. Then disrespect you on your shit because y'all asking me some shit and completely ignore what you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm with this Sharp because he a representative of the game I come from, and he's shedding light on it. He's shedding information and giving people that's from their walk of life or people who pretend to be from it, either or, to a chance to, you know, put their 2 cents in. And it was just something that the world in America really wanted to see me and him talk. So I wasn't gonna deprive the game of that because I don't like Adam 22. But at the same time, it's just like I ain't the mother blood. I ain't the
I keep telling y'all, bro. He not no. Y'all look at rappers, bro. That y'all look at the nigga getting shot. He don't leave, bro. That nigga is a little bit different, bro. I'm not trying to say he just a gangsterist nigga, but bro, that nigga don't give a damn about no rap, man. That nigga is a motherfucking P. Nigga don't give a damn. That nigga give a damn about making money. That's all that matters. And then you know that they trying to lock you up. So why not go legal? Shit, bro, this nigga is smarter than he look, man. Now we're gonna go into another little clip video, and then we're gonna get back onto the Diddy. I'm sorry I got y'all on there for that long. This is about, you know, essays down here saying the N-word and shit. We're gonna get into this real bad. Damn. Crazy, bro. That nigga say he been offered me his wife. He been offered me his wife. Boy.
Mexican OT did the podcast.
Y'all realize what Charles Walker just said? He said, man, the boy been offered me his wife. Hey, y'all better understand what he's saying, bro. Try to illuminate that nigga Sauce Walker. Sauce Walker told that nigga, what?
They asked him about, you know, the use of the N-word, and he kept it G. You know what I'm saying? I know you f with him too. And he said he was like, he's like, damn, it's hard to explain because there's no men in the room. And he goes, oh, there goes one. And he goes, what are you gonna do about it?
See, that's the thing about it. See, that's when the levels change at. See, if somebody confronts me and be like saying it like I said, so what you gonna do about it? Now you trying to use it in an aggressive form, like you're punking me, or like you have the power of determination over this word to where you can freely use it up under your scale without us being acceptive of that. Right. That's what a narrative change, and a real is gonna put you in your place like that. But at the end of the day, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room for that, and there probably wasn't no other real in the room to be like, hold on, nah, you can't do that like that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You use it in the way to use because we are my. Because guess what? Just because you my, I'll fight you because you my, and then you'll be, we good after. We'll look at that. That's the point of squabbling. That's the point of masculinity. That's the point of being a man. That's cool. Like how you say, because guess what? The same way how OT's saying that, that's my little brother, that's my nigga. Yeah. But guess what? I say Vato, SA, Wade, and whatever else under the sun. I feel the same way how you feel as well. But I'm gonna use it always in a form of love. But at the same time, if a call me out or somebody call me out about that, hold on, you can't say Vato with the whoop, and then want to look at me behind that, I'm gonna squabble you. We're gonna live and fight and die, whatever, live, fight, die, whatever it is, that's what we're gonna do, because that's what it is to be a warrior. That's what it is to be a man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But like, that's why I said when I was previously speaking, for a white boy or somebody that's not black to be able to use the word, you have had to go through pain with me. If you have not went through pain and suffering with and went through the profile, because that's what you got to understand. Whenever you choose, whether it's, like I said, it's different for a woman, but a woman experiencing when you have a child, like when a white woman has a child with a black person, that child is not white no more to society. That child is black. So yeah, the things that you used to get privilege of, your child is gonna put you in a position where you're gonna experience, oh damn, my child is a nigga. Oh damn, like what the shit that I used to get privilege of because you just see me and pull me over, or just see me in the regular the woman that I am before you know the type of men that I like and the child that I have. I have a certain privilege. But then in reality, the people that know this woman, her family, loved ones, friends, if they not also on that same frequency that she on, then she's been exiled. She's treated a certain type of way by the people that know her. Her child is treated a certain type of way by the people that naturally know her. But unless she has a loving family that's accepting of that. But when you get outside of your safety zone or your village, and something happens to your child, or your child go through experience, or you go through experience trying to protect your child, or your child, it ain't got to be police. It can be getting jumped, robbed, fight, shot on accident, just shit. And then you, oh damn, realize, okay, yeah, this would come behind being black. That's why they say everybody want to be a until it's time to be a.
Yeah,
that's the point that make me have respect and understanding for someone who is.
They've been through it. They've been there.
You been, you know what I'm saying? I know you from the same trap, same dope hoes, same struggle. We from the same hoes, same, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting shit from you, you getting shit from me. Like we hustling together. We, know what I'm saying?
I've been through that. I've been through that lifestyle, and I still decided to give up the word just because I'm like,
and that's okay too though. But like I said, it's also about where you born and raised.
Buffalo, New York.
Okay, so you from Buffalo? You from upstate New York?
Yeah,
Buffalo,
Western New York. I was out there with Conway and Benny.
That's what I'm saying. That's a whole different understanding of life and demographic than New York City, New York.
Yeah.
NYC, New York is 50-50 Hispanic. That is the entire culture of New York as far as like urban, what we love, what we know. Big Pun, Fat Joe, I mean not Remy Ma, but Jennifer Lopez, you know what I'm saying? They all say, and they all been saying our whole life. And nobody ever gave a until the internet started getting emotional and having their feelings involved.
And that's how I was telling Jimmy.
And that's the part that pissed me off. That's the part that made me like that shit fake. Like now, if motherfuckers was really running around this bitch slapping every single Hispanic person, like that's the thing. If I cared that much, see, okay, like you got like like in gang banging, it's a word that we don't like to be used. You know what I'm saying? It start with an S. I don't want to hear that word because I don't like that word. I don't want to hear that word being used in a sentence, period. I don't give a if a person's, if people that's watching this interview, they gonna know what I'm saying and they gonna say it in the comments on some lame bullshit, whatever. But just, or they gonna be like, they gonna feel what I'm saying, like, yeah, exactly. Like, if you're saying a regular sentence and the person say the S word, and I'm not talking about the green S word, I'm talking about some blood shit. I'm talking about the national overly understood disrespectful word, universal. This is a universal disrespectful word to all of us, and it start with an S. You know what I'm saying? If I hear a person use this word in a regular sentence, I'm damn near gonna stop them. And, hey, bro, don't say that. Hold on. What? Why? What that mean? Why you saying that? What? Oh, nah, yeah, I don't like that word right there. That word, it offends me. Yeah. If you're not the person that's going to do that every single time that somebody is using that word that you feel is not appropriate to be use of the word, then shut up about that and that shit fake. Like, you know what I'm saying? Shut up about it. Now, I'm the type of that I don't give a fuck about who use the word to a certain extent until they use it in hate and disrespect. Yeah. When if you use that word to hate and disrespect, for me, like I said, OT my little brother, I love OT to death. But if I was in the room in an interview, he wouldn't have said that like that. Because if he would have said that like that, you would have put me in a position where you're forcing my hand to respond to. That's like me calling you something out your name, or me saying that that's like me saying that, you know what I'm saying, somebody is not this because of that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's like me saying, oh, you can't be a Mexican Crip. I'm not gonna say that about my little because you probably really didn't fought and earned your name. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And what's that shit called? In Bay City, where my from, he didn't earn his name, and like it's real in Bay City. These is real street that's around him. I went and shot videos in this hood. I went to this city out in the country. He stayed an hour and a half away from Houston, Texas. I went to where he's from, and the predominant people that I saw was black people. I didn't see that many Hispanics around him. I seen probably 3 or 4 Hispanic people that was in and out, but when I went and shot videos in his ghetto, went to his grandma's house, went to the corner store where he was raised up at, all of these Crips that was around him, that was showing him love and embracing him was all black. Oh. So it's kind of like, it's kind of weird to feel that somebody who actually grew up in that type of environment around nothing but that's going to only address him and refer to him as him not saying.
Yeah.
Now, when the lights on and the cameras on and you put in position like that, and you know what I'm saying, it's used in the people are trapping you to use it in the word of, in a form of disrespect or like trying to, you gotta have some type of humility and tenderness for the public and for the people that love you and your fans. And I could say that it just take, you know what I'm saying, with him, because on this I got an album with it. I got a full album project with Mexican OT. He's from Texas. Yep. He's from my state. Did an album with Mexican OT. Like I said, an hour away from my city. He, you know what I'm saying, he's a part of the community of people that we all do music with. D-Baby say all the time. Just feel me? But D-Baby is a real that be around all day. And Hispanics too, though. D-Baby really got a bunch of little Hispanics around him, though. There's little street. But that's the whole point. That shit different where we come from. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't give a who you is. If you using it in a form of hatred and disrespect, yes, it's supposed to get checked. Like anything gets checked. I can call you a bitch. And like, that's my bitch. Oh, I love that. That's my hoe. I love that hoe. That's my hoe. Oh, that's my baby. When you mad. And I mean that in the form of love. Man, hell no, you ain't gonna touch my brother. You got my who? You got my hoe up. Touch my little brother, I'm gonna kill you about that hoe. That's my brother. I'm gonna kill about that. That's my like we talk in that way. Or they be like, bitch, you tripping. Hey, bitch, come here, fool. You feel me? But then in the form of disrespect, you are a hoe. You a hoe. You a whore. You a 3 or 4. You a ass. You a bitch. You a. You know what I'm saying? It's a different form of. You know what I'm saying? Now
you gotta understand it. Like if you
you gotta
obviously
be from
understand
that to get it. You know what I'm saying? And
that's kind of the point I was leaving.
At the end of the day, my whole point about it is like with anything in life, when a motherfucker feel fucked up about some shit, squabble about it. That's why I feel. Also, again, that's why he said that. I ain't making no excuse for bro, but that's also why he said that. He like, damn, and that's why he said, I wish it would. It ain't no, know what I'm saying? Yeah. But no, like, yeah, I
think he kind of felt pressed by it. Like,
yeah, and I can't be mad at that for feeling like he got to defend himself.
Yeah, he just looked at it like, why she coming at me?
Why you even come? Why you? And I feel that 100%. Like, you're fishing in this interview to make it
that's the shitty part about this game.
And that's the game. Just like, you know what I'm saying? I could have did this shit right now and be like, no, I don't respond to this shit, bro. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But then it's also like when you put them up in the spot and they respond, you gotta, you know what I'm saying, whatever come out there, whatever. I'm just, like I said, I don't give a I can do whatever. Ain't like I say this shit with a huge ass high horse. Ain't nobody doing shit to me.
I mean, that's kind of why I said it like I said it. Like usually I'd be like, yo,
you been down there with
OT. Me? Yeah, hell yeah.
You know what's going down. But I love everybody in Texas. Like, you know what I'm saying? All my little niggas saying, I feel like that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna address all of them. Like, I'm not gonna meet a Hispanic dude.
That nigga rides around
or as wherever as I'm talking to him. I'm just be like, yeah, bro, throw away and bro, or bro. I'm gonna say what I say. I'm gonna say splat. I'm gonna call you splat. If I put you like that, like I put you, I respect you. I got love for you. I want somebody. I want you to be around my community. I'm gonna call you splat blood. You know what I'm saying? And then it's another thing. It's Mexican bloods. It's real Booyah tribe. Like, it's real Mexican bloods from California. Just from Houston and from everywhere else. And that's what I'm saying. You can't, even when it comes to gang banging, it's real Mexican bloods, it's real Mexican Crips, it's motherfucking me, like they got the GD, they got the SDs, the Satin, and y'all know in the comments, they got SD, they're Spanish disciples in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? That's under they be with GDs and be with folks and shit. You know what I'm saying? They got their own shit going down. They beef with that. Like, it's you know what I'm saying? Like, that shit just blood.
Yeah, like, it's all over.
Where I'm from, that's how I feel. That's why, again, like, we just from a place where you don't like it. Let's squabble over that shit then. Whatever we finna do, let's do it. Like, and that's why our attitude is like that. Because I know so many other.
I keep telling y'all
that's like
they think that
trying to squabble me for
don't squabble
in the Spanish bitch. Like, you can't have our Spanish girl at school. She don't.
Hey, nigga, it's go on at the club.
You man, I'm fucking this Spanish bitch to come do something about this. You what you gonna do? Stop me from fucking this bitch? That's like it's. But I feel going, it's racial slur. Ooh, I feel that, but that's not that particular word. If we're going to, like, like the R word. You see how people make that R word?
Yeah, right.
The
I
G-
know it.
you spell what I'm saying? They're gonna say, yeah, R. Don't nobody want to use the R word in nothing because it's a horrible word, right?
Yeah.
So if it's horrible, and put it in the book of horrible shit and don't say it at all. If you go, that's just how I feel. Like, no, like how they made the rainbow word. Like, if you people scared to say the rainbow word now because you're scared of being.
Yeah, it's a terrible. It's wild because I love the goddamn word.
I'm gonna say you gonna make it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's so much fun. So much fun jokes, fun comedy.
Don't push your shit all the way
yeah.
back, but unplug the phone.
Yeah, but it was so much fun jokes, comedy, and stuff back in the day about the that they would use the word, bro. That's this and
that shit had nothing to do with gay people.
I ain't even gonna say it, but you heard me say it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel. Like if and that takes black people as a leading force of that. Like we have to be the thriving leading force of that. And I'm not saying that these little complaints. They be like, well, where are they supposed to start now? Because the complaints that's not the start, bro. If we come on, Splat, we're gonna be for real. Need to start undoing music, undoing.
Exactly.
You know how much shit we finna be undoing.
That's what I'm saying.
To
We
take
can't-
the word out of you. Spill me, or which we finna do. Is Nick finna only hang with niggas who better support? Now they go back to the other shit I get to be talking about when we talk about the real systematic racism.
All right, so let's go into it. So this clip after Mexican OT
He
shit.
got his own rules. Shout out to Lil Smoke Dog, man. For real. What's going on? Oh, that's the end of the clip. Yeah, that's the end of the clip, man. Right. Yeah, let me see. I think that's the end of the clip. Yeah, that's the end of the clip. Hey. So yeah, man, yeah, dog. Like it's different. It's different in Texas, man. We don't trip. We ain't tripping like California is over no essays, bro. Over no essays because we walk out the door and they right there struggling with us. When you go to the projects around Texas, just like you see black folks in there, you definitely see Spanish folks there. You know, it's just how it is in Texas. So we just gonna beef with each other staying right there. Man, it don't work like that. Bro, you wouldn't even be able to come up if you didn't deal with essays in Texas. How you gonna get some drugs? They got all the drugs. Like, they got all the drugs, bro. You don't have to deal with the Spanish people in Texas. I don't know about them, you know, the gang members and all that bullshit. We got them real Mexicans down here. You know what I'm saying? We got them ones with them cowboy boots and them alligator motherfucking belts. I mean, them ostrich belts and ostrich cowboy boots with the shit around there. Got that motherfucking load coming in. Like, them the kind of Mexicans we got around this bitch. But we also got some Mexicans that'll jump in a slab and roll just like a nigga do. There's nothing wrong with that. Shout out to them. Shout out to the Tongos, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to the Houstons. Houstons, man. You know? That's how it is in Texas, man. We get along in Texas. You know, we ain't trying to beef with the essays, man. We say non-black girls that have babies without a black man have to think about if they want other people to call their babies the N-word. If they don't want it to happen to their kids, it's a no. Thank you, man. And that's respectful. You know what I'm saying? I was raised that is ignorant. I think that's why I'm gonna explain to y'all something. I couldn't even say the word in my mama's house. She didn't even let me say it. Like, so I think that's why I say it so much as I'm grown. It was like a bad word. My mama said the N-word means an ignorant person. So every time you say it, you ignorant. Yeah. You know? You know? But it is what it is. I love being black, sir. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. No matter all the struggles, all the ups and downs, hey, I wouldn't trade it for nothing, sir. Shout out to all races. You know? For real. You know? Tread lightly in the comment section, man. I'll let you, you know, I'll let y'all rock out. But you know, gotta watch what you say when it comes
So
to
when you look at,
I mean, you gotta watch what you say when it comes to
when
me.
you look at
I watch
what
what I say when it comes to y'all over here, respectfully. So that's what it's gonna have to be over here. Right? Have to. So we're gonna set up this AI shit, man. We're gonna go into the court transcript, man.
Girls who you went on this trip with to Miami?
Yes.
Who paid for that girls' trip you took?
Sean.
Where were you all staying?
In Miami.
And
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Maureen Comey, Matisse Steiner, Meredith Foster, Madison Smizer, and Christy Slavic for the government.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You have Mark Agnifilo, Taney Garagos, Brian Steele, Alexandra Shapiro, and Jason Driscoll, and we're joined today by Mr. Combs. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Combs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Have you heard the questions I asked the government attorney and your counsel and their answers?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
We'll go to the next one. What's the next one now? The next one there.
As Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial charges into its second week,
No, that was wrong. So,
3 men are accusing
Damn.
Sean Diddy Combs of sexually assaulting them in various locations, and they are going after the music executive and his companies. We've got our hands on the filings to examine the latest allegations, and we are speaking directly with their attorney.
we go back. Man, that bullshit, dog.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Maureen Comey, Matisse Steiner, Meredith Foster, Madison Smizer, and Christy Slavic for the government.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You have Mark.
Watch that one. Gonna go to 9. Fuck it, I'm gonna let them all play from the top to the bottom. Fuck it. Fuck it. I'm gonna let it all play from the top one, which is gonna start from the last.
To get the defendant everything he wanted.
It's gonna start from the last one. It's 10 of them. It's gonna start all the way from the last one to it go to when it started. Oh, we're gonna go to that. We're gonna do that. I ain't gonna even stop it or nothing. I'm gonna let y'all just come and comment with y'all.
I know this will be a long road, but I want to emphasize that you have a tremendously important task as jurors. It is to determine the facts. You, and not the court, are the sole judges of the facts. The Constitution itself recognizes your unique role in our system of justice. So please, pay careful attention to the witnesses and evidence received at trial, as well as my instructions on the law. I thank you for your commitment to performing this civic duty and recognize the sacrifices that you have all made to be here today. We will now begin with opening statements. Is the government prepared to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
This is Sean Combs. To the public, he was Puff Daddy, or Diddy, a cultural icon, a businessman larger than life. But there was another side to him, a side that ran a criminal enterprise. During this trial, you are going to hear about 20 years of the defendant's crimes. But he didn't do it alone. He had an inner circle of bodyguards and high-ranking employees who helped him commit crimes and helped him cover them up. Kidnapping, arson, drugs, sex crimes, bribery, and obstruction. These are just some of the crimes that the defendant and his inner circle committed again and again. You are going to hear about all of them during this trial. Let's start now with just one night. The defendant was on the hunt for his girlfriend, a woman named Cassie. For years, the defendant physically abused Cassie. He also sexually exploited her, forcing her to have sex with male escorts while he watched and recorded it. But that night, the defendant learned he had lost control of Cassie. He found out Cassie was seeing another man. Furious, he set out to find Cassie and that other man, but he couldn't do it by himself. So he took his gun and he took his bodyguard, one of his most loyal lieutenants, to wake up one of the defendant's employees in the middle of the night. The defendant yelled that he was going to kill the man Cassie was with. He demanded that his employee take him to that man's home. The defendant forced the employee out of her apartment and into an SUV. They drove to the house. The defendant and his bodyguard broke in, but no one was there. The defendant did give up. He kept looking for Cassie. When he finally found her, he did what he had done countless times before. He beat her brutally, kicking her in the back and flinging her around like a rag doll. All of that violence wasn't enough, though. The defendant had to make sure he had control over Cassie once again. So he threatened her. The defendant told Cassie that if she defied him again, he would publicly release the videos of her having sex with male escorts that he kept as blackmail. Souvenirs of the most humiliating nights of her life. This was just one night in the defendant's 2 decades of crime.
I'm good.
In one night, he and his lieutenant kidnapped an employee, broke into a man's house, and the defendant beat and blackmailed his girlfriend. And as you will learn, this was just the tip of the iceberg. These are not the only crimes the defendant committed. That's not the only time he kidnapped someone, and Cassie is not the only woman he beat or sexually exploited. For 20 years, the defendant, with the help of his trusted inner circle, committed crime after crime. That's why we're here today. That's what this case is about. 20 years of crime is a lot to cover. So first, I'm going to walk you through what evidence in this case will show. Then I will explain a little bit about the charges, and then I will tell you how the government will prove that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So what will the evidence show? You'll learn that the defendant was a musician who created an empire. He had a record label, Bad Boy Records, and other businesses that he ran or controlled. Those businesses made the defendant rich, and he used money and resources from those companies to build his reputation and to feed his every desire. To do that, he relied on an inner circle of people closest to him, like his bodyguards, chief of staff, and other high-ranking employees who ran all aspects of his life. Together, the group worked to promote the defendant's power. They carefully cultivated and guarded his reputation. And they worked to get the defendant everything he wanted. He sometimes called himself the king, and he expected to be treated like one. He expected his inner circle to cater to his every desire, including his sexual desires. For years, the defendant used his inner circle and his company's resources to sexually exploit multiple women, including women he forced and manipulated into having sex with male escorts, meaning men who the defendant paid to have sex with women while he watched. No matter what, the defendant and his inner circle made sure he got everything he wanted. Many times that involved committing crimes together and then covering up those crimes. Those crimes included violent acts, like when the defendant brought his bodyguard and his gun to kidnap the employee I mentioned earlier. But you'll hear about the other violence too, like when the defendant's bodyguards kidnapped the same employee another time, forcing her to sit through days of lie detector tests, or when the defendant had a man's car set on fire, or when the defendant dangled a woman over a balcony. You'll see and hear evidence of all of this. The defendant had impossible demands. When his employees failed to meet those demands, the defendant threw things at them, threatened them, hit them, or pressured them to take drugs. He even sexually assaulted one of them. You'll also hear how the defendant used his employees to get and distribute drugs. They delivered those drugs whenever the defendant asked, including so he could give those same drugs to the women he was forcing to have sex with male escorts. He transported those women and those escorts across state lines and even out of the country for those sex acts. And he used his inner circle and the vast resources of his business empire to help arrange those trips and make the women available to him. Let me be very clear on this next point. This case is not about a celebrity's private sexual preferences. The evidence will show that the sexual conduct at issue in this case was coercive and criminal because the defendant made women have sex when they did not want to, because he threatened them, he drugged help, he lied to them, and he even used violence to make them do it. A lot of this trial will focus on just two of those women, Cassie, who I talked about earlier, and Jane. Some of the details of what happened to Cassie and Jane may be hard to hear, but this is what the evidence will show happened. The defendant used lies, drugs, threats, and violence to force and coerce first Cassie and later Jane to have sex with him in front of male escorts. The defendant insisted that the sex occur in a very specific, highly orchestrated way. These sexual performances lasted multiple days and involved multiple escorts. The defendant called these encounters by different names over the years. First, freak-offs, later, wild king nights or hotel nights. Week after week, the defendant directed freak-offs in hotels across the country and sometimes out of the country. At times, the defendant had escorts and the women travel from out of state, so the defendant's staff sometimes organized flights, cars, and hotels. The defendant's businesses paid those expenses. The defendant had particular demands for freak-offs. At his direction, the defendant's staff set up the room in advance with supplies, like his preferred lighting, extra linens, and lubricant. His staff remained on call to refresh anything the defendant needed, like cash to pay the escorts or drugs for the women and the defendant. The hotel rooms were dark. The defendant instructed Cassie and Jane how to look, to dress in lingerie, wear tall platform high heels, and have manicured white nails. The defendant selected drugs for Cassie and Jane to take, usually MDMA, also known as Molly or ecstasy. Sometimes those drugs made Cassie and Jane sick, but they also made the woman more uninhibited and sexually aroused. The defendant fed Cassie and Jane drugs throughout the freak-off so they could stay awake and perform for him for hours and days at a time. Once an escort arrived, the defendant dictated every step of the sexual activity that followed. Sexual activity that followed the same pattern. And he expected the women to enjoy themselves, to appear to, while they did it. The defendant masturbated throughout the freak-offs and often video recorded part of them. Now, I want to tell you more about Cassie and about Jane. Cassie was a 19-year-old model, an aspiring singer with a hit song when she met the defendant in 2006. The defendant was 17 years older than her and the head of a record label. Soon, Cassie was signed to a 10-album deal with the label. The defendant pursued Cassie, and within a year, they were dating. They stayed together on and off until about 2018. During that time, Cassie tried to work on her music and in modeling and acting, but the defendant made her turn down many opportunities. Instead, he paid for Cassie's cars, her apartments, and some of her day-to-day expenses. Although Cassie recorded music constantly, the defendant, the head of her record label, had final say on the music that she released. It was never another album. The defendant started abusing Cassie early on. Initially, Cassie fought back, but time and again, the defendant hit Cassie in the head, threw her to the ground and kicked her, and dragged her by the hair. In 2009, the defendant threw Cassie to the floor of an SUV and stomped repeatedly on her face. To hide her injuries, the defendant forced Cassie to stay in a hotel for the next week. He refused to let her leave and had his staff check on her to make sure she stayed put. The defendant also introduced Cassie to freak-offs early on. Soon, the defendant made it Cassie's job to find and book escorts for freak-offs. Freak-offs that were happening as often as once a week for days at a time, meaning that for almost half of every week, Cassie was in a dark hotel room, high and awake for days, performing sex acts that she did not want to do on male escorts. Cassie will tell you how she felt like she was choking when the defendant made an escort urinate in her mouth, and how she overdosed at a freak-off when she still had an open wound on her face from the defendant's most recent assault. The defendant's physical attacks on Cassie happened at the freak-offs too. As you will see on video during this trial, the defendant hit and kicked Cassie in the hallway of an LA hotel, trying to drag her back to the room where they had been with an escort. We'll talk more about that video later. Cassie tried the first freak-off because she loved the defendant and wanted to make him happy. After that, she knew it was not something she wanted to do, but because of the defendant, it became almost everything she did. Because if Cassie didn't do what the defendant wanted, the consequences were severe. Physically, the defendant beat her viciously, exploding over even the tiniest slight and beating her to show who was in charge. He beat her when she didn't answer the phone when he called. He beat her when she left a freak-off without his permission. He beat her when he thought she took too long in the bathroom. The defendant taught Cassie that defying him could and often would end in violence. And when she tried to run away, he always found her, often with the help of his inner circle. And Cassie's career and livelihood were also in the defendant's hands, something the defendant made clear to Cassie. He told her he could destroy her career by releasing the videos that he recorded of her performing sex acts on dozens and dozens of male escorts. So Cassie knew that failing to please the defendant, refusing his demands, had more than just physical consequences. It had the power to ruin her life. The defendant's control, the defendant's violence, and the defendant's threats. That is how the defendant ensured Cassie could not say no to him. So time and again, when the defendant suggested to Cassie that they have a freak-off, she knew she had no choice but to agree and went to work setting one up. She texted the escorts, arranged for them to come to hotels, and put on the performance the defendant wanted. Her livelihood and her safety depended on keeping him happy. Cassie's relationship with the defendant was complicated. You will hear during this trial that both Cassie and the defendant were unfaithful, jealous, and at times angry, but only one of them had power. Only one had control, and that was the defendant. And with that power and with that control, he made Cassie do his bidding in those dark hotel rooms. You'll learn, though, that Cassie was not the only woman the defendant did this to. This was a part of a pattern. Now, I want to tell you about Jane. Jane was a single mom who started spending time with the defendant in 2020. The defendant pursued and romanced Jane, who fell in love with him quickly. Jane was not seeing other men, but the defendant was seeing other women at the time, so his relationship with Jane was not at all public. For the first few months, their sex life was just the two of them, and Jane was happy. That was until the defendant introduced Jane to freak-offs. One night, when they had already taken drugs and been having sex for hours, the defendant told Jane about freak-offs. Jane agreed to try one to make the defendant happy. To her surprise, the defendant said he would make it happen immediately, that very same night. He took her to a hotel where a room was already set up and an escort was on the way. Jane was nervous, and the defendant directed her step by step. Jane thought the first freak-off was a one-time wild night. Jane was wrong. The defendant continued asking Jane to have freak-offs and promising that if she did, they would spend quality time together. They would go on dates together. They would go on trips. That was what Jane wanted more than anything, a real relationship. So she agreed. She helped plan freak-offs and reach out to escorts. But even though the defendant promised her quality time and trips, he never delivered. Those were just lies, he told her, to get more nights in dark hotel rooms with escorts. Jane will tell you about those nights in detail, how she wanted the escorts to wear condoms, but many times the defendant did not let them. And Jane will tell you how he had her take drugs to stay awake and aroused for days. Jane tried twice to make it through these nights without drugs. The first time, she broke down and had took ecstasy to finish performing for the defendant. The second time, Jane vomited after having sex with one escort. How did the defendant respond? He told her to hurry up and get back into the room where another escort was waiting. Early on, Jane told the defendant that she didn't like freak-offs and she just wanted to be alone with him. She loved him desperately and wanted a real relationship with him. The defendant did not listen. Feeling stuck and sick of the strangers the defendant kept bringing to these hotel rooms, Jane tried to assert herself in small ways. She found two men who performed in pornography, and she invited them to join the freak-offs. That way, Jane could at least choose the other man she was forced to be intimate with. Like he did with Cassie, the defendant eventually took steps to control Jane financially. The defendant wanted Jane available with him at a moment's notice, and he discouraged her from working. Jane's income plummeted. The defendant gave Jane money and later started paying rent for the house that she lived with her child. That way, when Jane resisted the freak-offs and told him over and over that she wanted to stop, he had the power to coerce her back into hotel rooms. And just as he had with Cassie, the defendant threatened Jane with the videos he recorded of her engaging in sex acts with the escorts. But the lies and the drugs and the threats were not the end of it. Not even a year ago today, Jane had the worst day of her life. The defendant came to Jane's house for an at-home date night. She and the defendant argued about another woman that the defendant had been seeing. Jane was upset and jealous. She had now spent years in hotel rooms for forced sex while the defendant took his other girlfriends for dates and trips. Jane hit the defendant and threw things at him. The defendant became enraged, so Jane tried to get away from him and hide. She ran to her bedroom and locked the door. He kicked it open. She ran to her bathroom and locked the door. He kicked it open. She ran to her closet and locked the door. He kicked it open. She ran to the guest bedroom and locked the door. He kicked it open. She tried to run out the front door, but he grabbed her in a chokehold, lifted her off the ground by her neck, and kicked her to the ground. Later that night, they fought again. And just as he had with Cassie, the defendant viciously attacked Jane. He punched her in the face, kicked her while she was curled up in a ball on the ground, dragged her by her hair and her arm, and slapped Jane's face so hard she fell over. When all of this was over, the defendant still did not let Jane be. Instead, he told Jane, "You're not going to my night." The defendant instructed her to put on an outfit and call up an escort for a freak-off. He made Jane cover her black eye and bruising, take an ecstasy pill, and perform for the descendant with that escort. Jane followed his instructions. Like with Cassie, the defendant's violence had gotten him what he wanted. The defendant's sexual violence did not stop at freak-offs, though. Cassie will tell you about a time when the defendant forced himself on her, having sex with her as she cried and repeatedly told him no. And Mia, an employee who the defendant worked to the bone for years, will tell you about the times that the defendant forced himself on her sexually, putting his hand up her dress, unzipping his pants, and forcing her to perform oral sex and sneaking into her bed to penetrate her against her will. As I said before, the defendant had the power and the control, endless resources, and a loyal inner circle who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Amidst all this violence, the defendant and his inner circle had to make sure that nothing put the defendant's public image and his power at risk. So as tirelessly as the defendant's inner circle worked to meet the defendant's every need, they also worked to cover up his crimes. Remember the video of the LA hotel of the defendant attacking Cassie during a freak-off? You will hear just how far the defendant, his bodyguards, and his chief of staff went to get what they thought was the only copy of that video. The defendant first tried to pay off hotel security guard with a wad of cash in exchange for his silence. Then the defendant and his chief of staff reached out to a different hotel security guard to broker a deal. In exchange for the video from the hotel, the defendant gave the security guard a brown paper bag full of $100,000 in cash, while the defendant's bodyguard and his chief of staff stood by. This is far from the only time the defendant's inner circle tried to close ranks and do damage control. You'll hear how the inner circle covered up the defendant's brutal beatings by keeping Cassie in hiding for days. You'll hear about the inner circle contacting witnesses of the defendant's abuse to feed them lies, including even after he knew about the investigation in this case. Again and again, the defendant and his inner circle tried to keep the defendant's crimes out of public view to protect his reputation and to protect his power. That is what the evidence in this case will show. For all of this, the defendant is charged with multiple federal crimes. You'll hear a lot more on the charges at the end of the trial when the judge instructs you on the law and his instructions control. But for now, there are just a few points I want to highlight so you have context for what you'll hear during this case. First, the defendant is charged with racketeering conspiracy based on his agreement to commit crimes as part of an enterprise. I expect the judge will tell you an enterprise is a group of people who work together for a common purpose of engaging in a course of conduct over a time. Here, you will learn that the enterprise is the inner circle I talked about, the bodyguards and the high-ranking employees like chiefs of staff. Some of these people came and went over 20 years, but I expect the evidence will show that the defendant was a through line. He remained at the top, running the group, and he always had trusted bodyguards and advisors helping him. Together, they agreed to commit different crimes, including kidnapping and arson, distributing drugs to other people, exploiting employees for labor, and in Mia's case, sex, bribery and obstruction, sex trafficking, and transporting people for prostitution. That's all covered by the racketeering conspiracy charge. The defendant is also charged separately for sex trafficking Cassie and Jane through force, fraud, or coercion. Again, the judge's instructions control, but I expect you'll learn that fraud includes a lie about a material fact. Coercion includes threats, and force includes violence. The defendant is charged with using all three tactics to make Cassie and Jane participate in days-long, drug-fueled, recorded sexual encounters with male escorts against their will. Finally, he was charged with transporting Cassie, Jane, and male escorts across state lines for these sexual encounters. How will the government prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of these crimes? You'll hear from witnesses, including Cassie and Jane, two of the defendant's victims. They will tell you how the defendant tried to control their lives from their homes to their careers, how the defendant used his control over them, his lies, his drugs, his threats, and his violence to force and coerce them into having sex with male escorts. Cassie and Jane will describe freak-offs for you in painstaking detail. They will tell you some of the most personal and painful experiences of their lives. The days they spent awake in hotel rooms, high on drugs, dressed as characters to perform the defendant's fantasy just as he directed them to. You'll also hear from some of the defendant's employees. You'll hear from Mia, who worked as the defendant's personal assistant for years, the employee he sexually assaulted. Mia is just beginning to grapple with the times the defendant forced himself on her sexually. Mia will tell you how she could not talk about what happened to her until recently, how she wanted to take the secret of what the defendant did to her to her grave. You will hear from the employee who the defendant forced into an SUV with a gun from one of the defendant's chefs, and from other personal assistants. They will tell you they worked punishing hours and days for the defendant, at times without any sleep. They will tell you how the defendant ordered them to buy drugs for him, how they used all the resources at their disposal to make sure the defendant always had everything he desired, how they were expected to keep quiet about what they saw and what they heard in the defendant's homes. You will learn that some of these witnesses and victims, including Cassie, have already received financial settlements from the defendant or have filed lawsuits against the defendant. But these witnesses will tell you they'd trade any money from the defendant for not having been abused. You will also hear from some of the escorts who participated in freak-offs with Cassie and Jane. They will tell you how the defendant directed the sexual activity between escorts and Cassie or Jane, down to the detail of how they touched each other, the specific sex acts they performed, all while the defendant filmed it. You will even hear from an escort who saw the defendant assault Cassie and drag her by her hair during a freak-off. In addition to these witnesses, you will see documents that prove the defendant's crimes. You'll see records from hotels, car services, and airlines showing the dates and locations when the escorts and women traveled to meet the defendant for freak-offs. You will see records of the physical damage the defendant in his freak-offs caused the hotel rooms where he stayed. You will see dozens and dozens of text messages about freak-offs, including messages from the defendant to his staff asking for more cash to pay escorts. Messages where the defendant tells Cassie what drugs to take and when before freak-off. And messages from Jane to the defendant telling him over and over again that she did not want to do freak-offs. And you will see videos of some of the freak-offs, the videos the defendant used to blackmail Cassie and to blackmail Jane. Those videos capture just small parts of these days-long performances. In them, you can hear the defendant providing direction to Cassie and Jane, and you will see Cassie and Jane do exactly what the defendant tells them to do. You will see them put on performances high on ecstasy, where they pretend to enjoy themselves because that's what the defendant said he wanted. You will see for yourselves the defendant's violence in its aftermath. You will see photos of Cassie and her injuries from the defendant's assaults. You will hear from witnesses who saw the defendant assault Cassie or saw injuries he inflicted on her. You will see photos of the damage the defendant did when he kicked in 4 doors at Jane's home. And you will see videos of Jane with bruising still on her face days after the defendant attacked her and forced her to do a freak-off not even a year ago. You will see for yourself what the defendant had in his homes in March 2024 when they were searched. Guns, the defendant's so-called med bag full of illegal drugs, and freak-off supplies like lubricant and platform high heels. Finally, you will see and hear evidence of how the defendant and his inner circle worked to keep his reputation and his power intact for all these years. You will see the agreement signed by the hotel security guard, barring him from speaking about the $100,000 that the defendant paid him for the hotel security video. You will hear recordings of phone calls when the defendant called Jane after Cassie had filed a lawsuit. You will hear him. You will hear him try to manipulate Jane into saying she wanted to have freak-offs. You will hear him interrupt Jane when she pushes back. You will hear the defendant's thinly veiled references to continuing to pay for Jane's home in exchange for her silence. You will see the text messages the defendant sent to his chief of staff right after talking to Jane to make sure that Jane's rent would still be paid on time. The evidence will come in piece by piece. It won't always come in chronological order, but by the end of this trial, when you've seen and heard all of the evidence, you will see how it all fits together. You will see how it proves that the defendant led and controlled an enterprise that enabled him and others working for him to commit many crimes. How it proves that he forced and coerced Cassie and Jane into sex with male escorts, including by having them travel to other states and countries so that those sex acts could happen. And you will see how all of these crimes and the empire the defendant controlled was designed to fulfill his sexual desires, to protect his reputation, and to keep his power. At the end of this trial, we will have the opportunity to speak with you again. But between now and then, I would ask that you do 3 things. First, please pay close attention to the evidence. Second, please follow the judge's instruction on the law. And third, please use and trust your common sense. If you do all that, you will reach the only verdict that is consistent with the law and the evidence in this case, that the defendant, Sean Combs, is guilty. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Maureen Comey, Matisse Steiner, Meredith Foster, Madison Smizer, and Christy Slavic for the government.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You have Mark Agnifilo, Taney Garagos, Brian Steele, Alexandra Shapiro, and Jason Driscoll, and we're joined today by Mr. Combs. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Combs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Have you heard the questions I asked the government attorney and your counsel and their answers?
Yes, I have, Your Honor.
P. Diddy's trial is underway, but did the prosecution expose a weakness in their own case on day one? Did the defense reveal they may not really have a defense when it comes to one charge? And what can we glean from the legal strategy
The government calls Scott Mescudi.
Welcome. Just come right up here.
Can I ask you to please give the court your first and last name and spell your first and last name?
Scott Mescudi, SCOTTMESCUDI.
Ms. Johnson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Mescudi.
Hi,
What do you do for work?
I'm an actor and musician.
Are you known by any other names?
Kid Cudi.
Ms. Foster, could you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A401? Mr. Mescudi, do you recognize who's depicted in Government Exhibit 2A401?
Yes,
Who is that?
Cassie Ventura.
Do you know Miss Ventura?
Yes,
How do you know Miss Ventura?
we were friends and we dated briefly.
How did you first meet Miss Ventura?
Just at an event in New York years ago, around like 2008.
Did you ever collaborate professionally with Miss Ventura?
Yeah, we worked on some music together.
You also mentioned you dated briefly. Approximately when did you date Miss Ventura?
2011.
You can take that down now, Miss Foster. Mr. Mescudi, who else, if you know, was Miss Ventura involved romantically with around the same time you were dating her in 2011?
Sean Combs.
Could you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A101? Mr. Mescudi, do you recognize who's depicted in Government Exhibit 2A101?
Yes,
Who's that?
Sean Combs.
Is that the same Sean Combs who was romantically involved with Miss Ventura?
Yes,
You can take that down now. Mr. Mescudi, when you were first dating Miss Ventura, what, if anything, did you know about the status of her relationship with Mr. Combs?
when we first started dating, you mean?
Yes, when you first started dating.
That she and Sean Combs had some problems and they weren't dating anymore.
Did your understanding of the nature of their relationship ever change?
Did the what now?
Did your understanding of the status of their relationship ever change?
After she told me?
Yes.
No, not that I knew of.
Miss Foster, can you also please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A406? Do you recognize Mr. Mescudi, who is depicted in this exhibit?
Yes,
Who is this?
Capricorn.
How do you know Capricorn?
She was a friend of Cassie's.
I want to direct your attention to December of 2011. Did there come a time when law enforcement responded to your home in December of 2011?
Yes,
Why did law enforcement respond in December 2011?
because I had a break-in.
I'd like to start at the beginning of the day of the break-in. How did that day start?
Well, I got a call from Cassie around 5:30, 6 a.m., and she told me that Sean Combs had found out about us. I was really confused, but she asked me to pick her up. She sounded really stressed on the phone, nervous, scared. So I went to go pick her up, and yeah.
A few follow-up questions for you. When Miss Ventura said that Mr. Combs had found out about us, as you said, what was your understanding of what Miss Ventura was saying?
Objection. Overruled.
You can answer.
Repeat the question?
Sure. You testified that Miss Ventura told you Mr. Combs found out about us. What was your understanding of what Mr. Combs had found out?
That me and her were dating.
And you also testified that you were confused when you heard that?
Yes,
Why were you confused?
because I didn't think she was still dealing with it.
And you mentioned that you went to pick her up. Is that right?
Yes.
Why did you pick her up?
She wanted me to come pick her up. And she was also worried that he would come to my house because he asked for my address and she gave it to him.
When you picked her up, could you please describe for the jury Ms. Ventura's demeanor?
Very stressed, nervous, just scared. Didn't know what Sean Combs would do.
Prior to the phone call you received that you just testified about, had you and Ms. Ventura previously discussed the nature of her relationship with Mr. Combs?
Yeah, about like if they were still hanging out or if she had seen him or just meeting in general.
Let me be a little more specific. What, if anything, had Ms. Ventura previously told you about Mr. Combs being physical with her?
That he was abusive.
Same objection, Your Honor.
It's sustained.
Mr. Mascati, after you picked up Ms. Ventura, where did you go?
I took her to the Sunset Marquis.
What's the Sunset Marquis?
It's a hotel in Los Angeles.
Why did you go to the Sunset Marquis after you picked up Ms. Ventura?
I used to frequent the Sunset Marquis and I just thought it was safe and just wanted to put her somewhere where she was off the radar.
When you say safe, what do you mean by that?
Just safe, away from him.
When you and Ms. Ventura were at the Sunset Marquis, who else, if anyone, did you speak to while you were at the hotel?
Capricorn.
So before we talk about the substance of that communication, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Had you spoken to Capricorn before this morning?
Yes.
How often had you spoken to Capricorn on previous occasions?
Quite often. She hung out with me and Cassie a lot.
On the morning when you were at the Sunset Marquis, how did you speak to Capricorn?
On speakerphone.
Who else was present, if anyone?
Cassie.
And can you describe how Capricorn's voice sounded on the phone call that you and Miss Ventura had with her at the Sunset Marquis?
She was very scared. Sounded like she was on the verge of tears.
What, if anything, did Capricorn say to you and Miss Ventura on that phone call about what was happening at the moment for her?
Objection, Your Honor.
That's overruled.
You can answer.
That Sean Combs and an affiliate were in my house and she was in a car. She was forced to go along with them over there.
And what, if anything, did Ms. Capricorn say about where she was at that moment?
She was in a car outside my house waiting for them.
And what, if anything, did Capricorn say about where Mr. Combs was at the moment?
Ask and answer. Sorry, objection.
Overruled.
In my house.
After you spoke to Capricorn, what did you do next?
I got in my car and went to my house.
Did anyone go with you when you went to your house after that phone call?
No.
Ms. Foster, can you please pull up for identification for the court, the witness, and the parties only, Government Exhibit 8C102? Mr. Mezcudi, do you recognize what's depicted in this exhibit?
Yes.
What is it?
It's the front door of my old house.
And is this the house you drove to after receiving the phone call from Ms. Clark?
Yes.
The government offers Government Exhibit 8C102.
No opposition.
8C102 will be admitted.
Will you please publish to the jury, Ms. Foster? Mr. Mezcudi, what was the address where you were living at the time?
8925 Hollywood Hills Road.
And you mentioned that this was just so I'm clear, you mentioned that this door we see in the photograph, is this the front gate door or is this the door to the residence?
This is the front gate door.
Is there an additional door to the residence?
Yes.
You can take that down now, Ms. Foster. How would you describe the neighborhood that 8925 Hollywood Hills Road is located in?
Quiet, family-oriented.
And approximately how long was the drive from the Sunset Marquis Hotel to your home at 8925 Hollywood Hills Road?
Maybe like 12, 15 minutes.
And in December 2011, what kind of car did you drive?
A Porsche 911 Cabriolet.
Was that the car you were driving that evening?
Yes.
While you were on that drive from the hotel to your home, what, if anything, did you do?
I called Sean Combs.
How did you have Sean Combs' phone number?
I just had it from years ago.
Did Mr. Combs pick up your call?
Yes.
Can you describe the conversation that you had with Mr. Combs on the drive to your home?
Yeah, I'm going to be very candid. I said, "You in my house?" And he was like, "What's up?" I was like, "Are you in my house?" And he said, "I just want to talk to you." I was like, "I'm on my way over there right now." He was like, "I'm here."
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last bit. After you said, "I want to talk to you," what did Mr. Combs respond with?
No, he said he wants to talk to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I said, "I'm on my way over to my house right now." And he's like, "I'm over here waiting for you."
When Mr. Combs said, "I'm over here waiting for you," What was your understanding of where Mr. Combs was located?
At my house.
What was Mr. Combs' tone of voice during that phone call?
Calm.
When you arrived at your house, focusing first on the outside of your house, what did the outside look like?
Pretty normal.
Were there any security cameras at your residence at that time?
Yes.
Were those security cameras working that evening?
They weren't. I thought they were working, but they weren't.
You find out later that they weren't working?
Yeah.
Where were the security cameras positioned on the exterior of your house?
To the side, like somebody moved it out the way.
When you say someone moved it out of the way, can you explain what you mean by that?
Like the camera was angled down at the door originally, and it was moved to an opposite angle.
And when did you discover the camera had been moved to a different angle?
Once I got to the house.
And was the camera at a different angle earlier, before the break-in?
Yes.
Had you moved the security cameras at all?
No.
I want to focus now on the inside of your home. When you went inside, was anyone inside your home?
No.
What did you see inside your home?
Some gifts that I bought for my family were open, some stuff I got from Chanel, and then my dog was locked up in my bathroom.
So taking those one at a time, where were the gifts that were opened?
On the kitchen counter.
What type of gifts were those?
I can't remember exactly what specifically, but it was stuff from Chanel.
And you mentioned that your dog was locked up in the bathroom, is that right?
Yes.
How did you typically allow your dog to stay in your home when you weren't present?
I just let him roam.
Had you shut the door to the bathroom before you left?
No.
Before the break-in, how long had you had your dog?
I think by this time, maybe 3 years.
And I want to focus on the immediate aftermath of the break-in, right after. What, if any, changes in behavior did you notice in your dog after the break-in?
Very jittery and kind of on edge all the time.
I want to focus on what you did next. After you got to your home, what did you do after that?
I got in the car and that's when I called Sean Combs.
So you got back to your car after you went to your home?
Yeah.
Were you still alone in your car?
Yeah.
And you mentioned you called Mr. Combs again?
Yeah.
Why did you call Mr. Combs again?
Because I was looking for him.
Why were you looking for him?
Because I wanted to confront him. I wanted to fight him, you know?
Did you call Mr. Combs?
Yeah.
Did he answer?
Yes.
Can you describe that conversation for the jury?
I can't remember my exact words, but I was kind of like asking him where he was. And he was like, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. So at that point, I hung up and I thought to myself, I was like, okay, you're angry.
Objection.
Grounds.
Non-responsive.
That's overruled.
Okay, you're angry. Just think about this, you know, like, and I just thought, like, I don't know who he has with him. I don't know what his intentions are.
Objection.
Why don't we get a fresh question?
That's fine. Mr. Mezcudi, what did you do after that phone call with Sean Combs?
I thought about, you know, the reality of the situation, not knowing what I was walking myself into. So I decided to call the police.
Can you describe Mr. Combs' tone of voice when you spoke to him on the phone while you were in your car?
Calm.
Where did you go after you called the police?
I went back to my house.
When you returned home, was anyone there?
Yes.
Who was there?
The police.
Did you speak to the police?
Yes.
Did you make a report about the break-in?
Yes.
Did you see Miss Ventura later that day?
Yes.
What was her demeanor like when you saw her later?
Stressed.
You mentioned this was in December 2011, is that right?
Yes.
Where did you spend the Christmas holiday in December 2011?
With Cassie's family in Connecticut.
Where did you stay in Connecticut when you were there for the holidays?
At her family's house.
Can you generally describe Miss Ventura's demeanor when you were in Connecticut for the holidays with her family?
I think being around her family really did a lot for her at that time. She really needed it.
While you were away in Connecticut, did you have any additional communications with Mr. Combs?
Yes, he had hit me a couple of times.
When you say he hit you, what do you mean by that?
He texted me.
Did he text you? You said a couple of times. How frequently did Mr. Combs text you?
It wasn't every day. It kind of stopped at some point when I responded to him and told him I didn't want to talk. His text messages were always along the lines of him wanting to speak. Just get to the bottom of it.
When you say you got to the bottom of it, what are you talking about?
Just figure out what's going on, I guess. He was in the dark about things and wanted to talk. But at that point, you know, post break-in, I didn't want to talk to him.
Did you respond to Mr. Combs' texts?
Yeah, I told him, you know, specifically told him, you broke into my house. You messed with my dog. Like, I don't want to talk to you.
When did you leave Connecticut?
A little bit before New Year's.
By January of 2012, after New Year's, what was the status of your relationship with Ms. Ventura?
We weren't really hanging out.
Why was that?
I guess.
Objection.
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure. You said you weren't really hanging out with Ms. Ventura?
No.
Did the relationship end?
Yeah.
Directing your attention to January of 2012, did there come a time when you learned your car had caught fire?
Yes.
How did you learn that your car had caught fire?
My dog's babysitter called me in the morning.
Approximately what time did you receive that phone call?
6:30, 7 a.m.
What was your understanding of where your dog's babysitter was located when she called you?
at my house.
Was it your understanding that your dog's babysitter was telling you what was happening in real time?
Yes.
And what did your dog's babysitter say to you about what she saw?
She told me my car was on fire.
Was anyone else present at your house at the time?
No.
Where were you?
I was at my ex-girlfriend's sister's house.
Approximately how far away from your house were you?
Like 45 minutes or something like that.
Where was your car at the time your babysitter called?
In the driveway.
Was it in the driveway of the same home at 8925 Hollywood Hills Road?
Yes.
After you received this phone call from your dog's babysitter, what did you do?
I immediately went to my house.
Miss Foster, can we please pull up for identification for the court, the witness, and the parties, government exhibits 3F101 and 3F102? I'm going to show you 6 total pictures, Mr. Mascotti.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize what's depicted in those pictures?
Yeah.
What is it?
My Porsche.
Miss Foster, can you please pull up government exhibits 3F103 and 3F104? Do you recognize what's depicted in these photos, Mr. Mascotti?
Yes.
What is it?
The damage from a Molotov cocktail in my Porsche.
Is that your car?
Huh?
This is your car.
Yes.
Miss Foster, can you now please pull up for identification government exhibits 3F105 and 3F108? Mr. Mascotti, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes.
Is that your car?
Yes.
The government offers government exhibits 3F101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 108.
No opposition, Your Honor.
Those exhibits will be admitted.
Can you publish those exhibits to the jury? Mr. Mascotti, when did you receive these photos?
While I was on my way to my house.
Who sent these photos to you?
My friend Chip.
Who's Chip?
He's a good friend and collaborator.
Why did Chip send you photographs of your car?
He was closer to my house and I wanted to see the damage that had been done.
Did you ask Chip to go take photos for you?
Yes.
So I want to focus on these 2 photographs. First, on the one on the left. Can you describe what's depicted in the photograph on the left?
It looks like the top of my Porsche was cut open and that's where they inserted the Molotov cocktail.
And the photograph on the right. From what angle is that photograph taken?
It looks like that's from the passenger side looking up the roof.
On the right-hand side of the photograph, what is the hole? Is that the same hole in the roof you can see on the photograph on the left, 3F101?
Yes.
Can you take these down, Miss Foster, and pull up 3F103 and 3F105 side by side? Mr. Mascotti, starting with the one on the left, can you please describe what we are seeing in government exhibit 3F103?
That's the door to the driver's side, smoke damage.
Then what is depicted in the photograph on the right?
That's the hole in my roof.
Can you take those down, Miss Foster, and pull up government exhibit 3F104 and 3F108? What's depicted in these 2 images?
The damage to the driver's side.
You mentioned a Molotov cocktail earlier.
Yeah.
What's a Molotov cocktail, to your understanding?
It's, would you say, explosive or something like that? I guess it's a bottle with some type of like inflammatory liquid inside and a cloth that you light on fire and it ignites.
Did you eventually get to your home on the day of the car fire?
Yeah.
What did you see when you arrived home?
Just the damage. I saw the Molotov cocktail, yeah.
Are these photographs that we just looked at similar to what you saw when you arrived home?
Yeah.
When you say, I saw the Molotov cocktail, what did you see?
The bottle, and it was kind of just burnt up.
Was any law enforcement present when you arrived here to your home?
Yes.
Did you speak to law enforcement that day?
Yes.
Did you make a report?
Yes.
With respect to your car, was your car able to be repaired after the fire?
No.
And when you said you saw the bottle for the Molotov cocktail when you returned home, where was that bottle?
On the ground.
Was it on the ground inside or outside of your vehicle?
Outside of the vehicle.
Was it near the vehicle?
Huh?
Where was it in relation to the vehicle?
It was near the vehicle.
What was your understanding of where the Molotov cocktail was found by law enforcement?
In the driver's seat.
I think you mentioned this, but was your car able to be repaired?
No.
What was your reaction to your car being set on fire?
What the?
Objection.
That's overruled. Ms. Johnson, We're going to take a 5-minute break whenever you are ready in the next couple of minutes. When you find a good landing place.
I'm about to move on to a different topic, so I think this may be a good landing place.
Very good. Members of the jury, we are going to take a short recess and we will be back in 10 minutes. So around 11:22 or thereabouts. All rise. Ms. Johnson, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Mascotti, before we took the break, we were talking about the day your car was set on fire. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Just 2 additional questions about that day. Ms. Foster, could you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 3F105? Mr. Mascotti, was the damage depicted in Government Exhibit 3F105 present on your vehicle before you got the call from the dog sitter you described earlier?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'll strike the question. The last time you saw your car prior to the phone call you got from the dog sitter, did your car look like this?
No,
What was your understanding of whether this was accidental or intentional?
it was intentional.
Ms. Foster, can you please pull up Government Exhibit 3F103? Mr. Mascotti, did the door of your car look like this before you got the call from your dog sitter that there was a fire in your car?
No,
Was it your understanding that this damage was accidental or intentional?
intentional.
You can take that down now, Ms. Foster. When was the last time you saw Ms. Ventura?
2012,
Where did you see her?
at the Soho House.
When did you see Ms. Ventura at the Soho House relative to the day your car was on fire?
A couple of days later,
Why were you at the Soho House?
I reached out to Sean Combs after my car had caught fire and, finally told him that we needed to meet up to talk. He had been wanting to talk to me. So after the fire, I was like, this is getting out of hand. I need to talk to him.
Why was it Mr. Combs you reached out to after the fire?
Because I knew he had something to do with it.
Your Honor, can we have a sidebar?
Is there an objection?
Objection.
Objection is sustained. The jury should disregard the witness's last answer. Ms. Johnson, you may ask your next question.
Mr. Mascotti, who, if anyone, helped arrange the meeting at the Soho House?
This man named D-Rock and my manager, Dennis Cummings.
Who is D-Rock, if you know?
I don't know exactly what he does for Mr. Combs, but I guess he was like security or somebody.
Do you have an understanding that he worked for Mr. Combs?
Yes,
Where at Soho House was the meeting held?
it was held. The rooms are not there anymore, but they used to have like meeting rooms on the first floor.
In which city was the meeting held?
Hollywood.
In Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Can you describe what happened when you arrived at the Soho House?
Yeah, I walked in and I met D-Rock. He was escorting me into the room, and then I got to the room. It was one wall, was all window, and Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Yeah, it was just me and him in the room, no security, nobody.
Was Miss Ventura present when you initially arrived at the meeting?
No,
What happened when it was just you and Mr. Combs in the room at the Soho House?
we discussed, pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date, to what it was, to how it ended. And his whole point was, we were homies, that was my girl. I let him know that, she told me they were broken up, and I took her word for it. Yeah,
What was Mr. Combs' demeanor during this meeting?
very calm. He kept offering me water. He offered me water twice.
What was your reaction to his demeanor?
It was very off-putting. It was weird that he was so calm.
You mentioned that Miss Ventura wasn't present when you first arrived.
No.
Did that change?
Yes, she eventually came.
And how did you react when Miss Ventura arrived?
I was upset to find out that she had kind of went back to him.
What did Miss Ventura do when she arrived?
She pretty much kind of explained that we fell in love and things just happened and
I believe you testified to this earlier, but how soon was the meeting at the Soho House in relation to the day your car was on fire?
I think it was like the next day.
At the same time, did you have conflicts with anyone else?
No.
Can you describe how the meeting with Mr. Combs ended at the Soho House?
Yeah, we stood up, shook hands, and as I was shaking his hand, I said, "What are we going to do about my car?" I made sure to ask him right when our hands were clasped together, where he couldn't run away, and I could look him square in his eyes. And he looked right back at me, very cold stare, and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I said, "Okay." I took my hand from his, and he said, "Wait, I thought we were cool. Is there a problem?" I was like, "You said you didn't burn my car, right? You said that's your word." He said, "Yeah." I was like, "That's it."
When Mr. Combs looked at you and said, "I don't know what you were talking about" when you asked about your car, what was his tone of voice?
Very calm.
After this meeting, were there any other break-ins at your home?
No,
And after this meeting, was your car ever set on fire again?
no.
Have you seen Mr. Combs since that Soho House meeting?
Yes.
Approximately when did you see Mr. Combs?
A couple of years later at the Soho House again.
Can you describe what happened when you saw him at the Soho House a few years later?
Yeah, he was with his daughter and he pulled me to the side and basically apologized for everything. He said, and I quote, "Man, I just want to apologize for everything and all that."
Between the break-in and the car fire and Mr. Combs' apology a few years later, did you have any other conflicts with Mr. Combs in that interim time period?
No. After I got the apology, I kind of found peace with it because I thought, that was the last thing I was expecting to get from him.
Your Honor, may I have one moment?
You may.
No further questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Status Bill Hubble, I bought Lennox Mall for my brothers. Whole yard bag, tote the cutter. I got it out the field, fuck Russell. Going as Lori about the paddock and going as Jordan as dead. For leak water, trying to drown a bitch. This a habit tricking on a bitch. Shit, I'm thinking I'm crippin' a pimp. Shit, I'm cooking up dope like a dump. Shit, that curfew's gon' sit nigga trim. Shit, I'm floating, I'm out in the blimp. Shit, it look like I'm swimming in glass. Shit, I turn on my bitch cause she bad. Shit, I'm making my ex nigga mad. Shit, they go for that coming for man. Real nigga learn up from wearing a bag. Piping a bitch and they nail like I can. Turn up the shooters with switches go bad. They was some scammers but I was okay. Clapping no rapping, my dog and fall off. No capping, no bound.